Chapter 874. Qin Huayuan took Brother Han and bumped him in his arms. He smiled and asked, "Do you still remember the sentence that grandfather taught you just now?" Brother Han thought for a moment and answered loudly, "Hang the people and punish them for their crimes." Zhou Fei and Yin Tang. Sit in the imperial court and ask for Dao. Hang the arch and level the chapter. Qin Huayuan smiled and nodded. He then asked Brother Zhao in Pang Zhao's arms, "What does this sentence mean? Does Brother Zhao still remember it?" Brother Zhao blinked his long eyelashes and shook his head with a pout. He seemed to feel embarrassed and simply buried his face in Pang Zhao's arms. Brother Han also frowned. "Grandfather, that sentence is too long." Brother Han also can't remember it. Qin Yining was amused. "Father, you're starting to teach them the 1,000-character classic? They're all very smart." Knowing that he was praised, Brother Han proudly shook his head. Pang Zhao looked at him and didn't say anything that he could persuade him. At first, he thought that the children were too young and it was too early to start learning the 1,000-character classic before they finished speaking. However, it was obvious that Qin Huayuan taught them well. The two children were enjoying it. He was a rough person. His father-in-law was more experienced in this area. In the future, he was assured that his father-in-law would teach the children. The group of people entered the inner room while talking. Old Madame, Madame Zheng, and Madame Ma were sitting on the arhut bed by the window and talking. Second Old Master and his wife, Qin Han and his wife were all there. Qin Huayuan and Miss Ba were also sitting on the other side of the small table, talking and laughing in a low voice. When Qin Yining saw that the whole family was there, he happily went forward and bowed to Old Madame and the others. Pang Zhao put Brother Zhao down and also bowed to Old Madame and the two maternal aunts. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Old Madame smiled kindly, but her complexion wasn't as rosy as before. After experiencing so much separation and reunion, Old Madame had long lost her competitive spirit. In addition, she had been with Madame Zheng and Madame Ma for the past few days. Her thoughts had also been influenced by them. Now that her children were gathered by her side, it was already her greatest happiness. Qin Huayuan smiled and handed Brother Zhao and Brother Han to the wet nurse, asking them to take the children out to eat snacks. Mammy Qin knew that Qin Huayuan had something serious to say. She retreated to the door and motioned for the servant girls to retreat with her. She also ordered them to close the door and guard outside to prevent anyone from approaching. Qin Huayuan said, "Now that Jishi and Sister Yi are back, our family can be considered complete. I have a decision, and I want to tell you now so that everyone can listen." Second Old Master and Third Old Master looked at each other and couldn't help but think to themselves, "It's true." Qin Huayuan had been back for half a month. Although he still looked as gentle and refined as before, as his biological brother, it could be seen that he often had a lot on his mind. Having expected such a conversation, Second Old Master said, "Eldest brother, if you have something to say, just say it." Old Madame also said, "Brother Meng, what did you decide?" Qin Huayuan sighed and said with emotion, "I was able to survive this time because the process was really bumpy. I won't go into detail about the hardships, but everyone can imagine it. When I was walking in the desert, although there were people arranged by Sister E, the feeling of looking around at a loss and not being able to distinguish where I came from and where I was going was really... During this period of time, I thought a lot and also saw through a lot. I worked for the imperial court for most of my life, first in Dian, then in Dezhou. But in the end, you all saw how I ended up. My old colleagues in Dian still secretly scold me for treason. Needless to say, my colleagues in Dezhou didn't even come to offer condolences for my death. There was only one Prince Consort Ji, and it was all for the sake of son-in-law." Qin Huayuan stood up and pointed to the place under his feet. "When the fatuous ruler and the demon empress were still alive, because of me, the family suffered. Sister, he was almost caught by the demon empress and eaten. The whole family also faced revenge. The land under our feet was stained with the blood of our family Qin people, and how many loyal servants of the family Qin died in vain." Old Madame pursed her lips, and tears flowed down her face. My twin granddaughters and my filial third daughter-in-law. When everyone heard this, their noses turned sour. Thinking of his third wife who was killed to protect his son, third master choked with sobs. Qin Yu also wiped his tears with his sleeves. He hadn't remarried yet because of his deceased wife. Everyone knew the reason for the tragedy of the family Qin. When the male members of Duke Ding's Sun family were executed and the female members were made into servants of officials, old Madame Zheng understood the anger and heart-wrenching pain of having a broken family the most. Madame Zheng took old Madame's hand and patted it comfortingly, but she also shed tears. Qin Huaiyuan shook his head. I thought I had a clear conscience, but looking back now, after wasting most of my life, my family was also involved. Now, I don't want to make a name for myself. I don't want to leave my name in history. His Majesty's fear of us has never been eliminated. If we stay here, I'm afraid we will become targets in the future. With a firm gaze, Qin Huaiyuan bowed to old Madame and his family. This time, Sister Yi's subordinates saved me. In order to get rid of the pursuers, they directly took me to an oasis in the desert called Xie. Back then, Enrich established a place there. I lived there for a while and did a thorough inspection. Although it's a secluded place, the people there are still simple and honest. It's not difficult to control and develop there. So today, I want to tell everyone that if we stay here, we will become the hindrance of Jishi and Sister Yi sooner or later. In the future, our lives will be in the hands of the Emperor. Second brother, third brother, and I are now free from official positions and don't care about our names. Why don't we move to Xie and start over there? Qin Huaiyuan looked at Madame Zheng and Madame Ma. He bowed and said, Mother-in-law, old Madame, my proposal is not only aimed at the family Qin, but also at the Wang Fu and Sun family. Even if I don't say it in detail, everyone is aware of Jishi's current situation. The Emperor is afraid of Jishi, and there will be a war in the future. All of us will be involved. This time, I'm already a dead person outside, and the spearhead will turn to you. Instead of staying here and being frightened, why don't we go to Xie together? This time, I went to Xie with cloth, gold, silver, and grain seeds. Moreover, Sister Yi's subordinates have a way to distinguish the direction in the desert. Seeing that I went in and came out, it's not like we can't come out even if we go. At that time, we will stay away from trouble and manage that oasis well. Not only can we protect the safety of our family, but we can also stay away from disputes and quietly recuperate. We won't be a burden to Jishi and Sister Yi, and we won't have to worry about being taken hostage. Qin Huaiyuan's words were very straightforward, and all the women and children present understood. Although his words were crude, the truth was comprehended by him during this period of time. For our three families to reproduce, leaving this place of trouble is the most appropriate way. Xie is deep in the desert, and the desert is the best barrier. We can start over there. Second brother, third brother, what do you think? What about mother-in-law? The room fell into a dead silence. Everyone frowned and pondered. After a long time, second master said in a hoarse voice, I think what eldest brother said is reasonable. I agree. Third master also let out a long sigh and nodded. He was different from second master. Second master didn't work as an official and was idle at home. He only taught the family's children to read. However, third master controlled the family's economic lifeline. He had a large business to do. Compared to second master, third master had more to give up when he nodded. Qin Huaiyuan secretly nodded and then explained, Third brother, you don't have to worry. Even if our family moves, it doesn't mean we won't come out. Your business can be looked after by reliable people. After a period of time, you can check the accounts and make specific arrangements. You don't have to completely give up. Third master nodded. This way, it will be more reliable. I also agree. The three masters all nodded, and the children naturally couldn't disobey. Old Madam didn't care where she went. As long as the family could live together safely, it was good. Naturally, they also agreed. Madame Zheng thought for a while and said, Our Sun family already has some foundation in the south. However, this isn't difficult. I can temporarily hand over those connections to Sister Yi. When things are peaceful in the future, We can deal with them carefully. Qin Huayuan respectfully said, Mother-in-law is right. All of us can leave, but Sister Yi and I can't. Everyone's eyes gathered on the two of them. Pang Xiao smiled. Father-in-law, you don't have to worry. If everyone I care about can go to a safe place, then I can do things freely. However, Sister Yi, Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining with slight hesitation. Sister Yi, why don't you follow the family to see ya? Qin Yining was deep in thought with his eyes lowered. When he heard this, he suddenly raised his head. Why? If I leave, will I let you fight alone? Just now, I was thinking that when we left the capital, young Master Mu just happened to leave a lot of bandit corpses for the imperial court. The whole family suddenly disappeared, so we can push the blame to the bandits. Your Majesty is far away in the capital and can't see the scene with his own eyes. This statement is 80% credible. But I can't leave. If I leave, it is very likely to attract Your Majesty's attention. Even if Your Majesty doesn't notice, don't forget that you still have a troublemaker locked up there. Pang Xiao looked solemn. He had to admit that Qin Yining's concerns were well-founded. The Tianjizi's target was him and his wife. If Qin Yining stayed, the Tianjizi wouldn't care where the Qin family and the Pang family went. However, if Qin Yining also left, the Tianjizi might pay attention to the desert. The desert in no man's land could stop Li Qitian's troops, but couldn't stop the Tianjizi. Just as Pang Xiao couldn't leave, Qin Yining couldn't leave either. Pang Xiao sighed softly and nodded helplessly. Chapter 875. Pang Xiao knew that Qin Huayuan was full of vicissitudes of life and no longer had the heart to be strong. Although his thoughts were different from his father-in-law's, he couldn't deny that from Qin Huayuan's point of view, taking advantage of the current situation to retreat was indeed the safest way. However, Qin Huayuan wasn't him, so he didn't fully understand his current situation. Anyone could leave, but he and Qin Yining couldn't. If they also retreated, who would be the barrier? Not to mention anything else, Tianjizi was obviously still conflicted about the day's calculations. Just as he had analyzed, a desert could stop Li Qitian, but might not be able to stop Tianjizi. Don't worry, father-in-law. I will think carefully. Qin Huayuan nodded with a heavy expression. Mrs. Ma smiled and said, Dai Fu, listen to your father-in-law. Grandma doesn't ask you to be rich. I just want our family to be safe and sound. I understand what Grandma means. Pang Xiao smiled. Mrs. Ma patted the back of her hand, thought for a moment, and said, Since the whole family is moving, I will go back and tell your grandfather. We will go with the in-laws, so we don't have to go through the trouble twice. We can take care of each other when the family is together. Mrs. Ma is right, Mrs. Ma said. Madame Zheng added, When we reach the oasis, we can continue to help Sister Yi take care of the children as usual. The children's grandfather will be responsible for teaching them literature, and you can also teach them how to train their muscles and bones. Mrs. Ma heard this and nodded repeatedly. That's good. My heart is full of these two precious children. I feel sad if I can't see them. Mrs. Ma looked at Pang Xiao. But your mother, Pang Xiao smiled and said, Grandma, don't worry. You and grandfather can rest assured and prepare. I will order people to bring my mother back as soon as possible and set off with the family. Oh, that's good. Mrs. Ma smiled and nodded. When Qin Huayuan saw that his suggestion was accepted without any resistance, he could finally put down the huge rock in his heart. Since we've come to an agreement, let's go make our own preparations. The sooner we're ready, the sooner we can set off. Yes. Second Old Master, Third Old Master, Qin Han, and the others all nodded and left the old madam's courtyard. Qin Yining had been standing silently by the side, observing the expressions of the whole family. Regarding this family relocation plan, there were those who were happy, those who didn't care, and naturally, there were those who were unwilling. As expected, Miss Ba and Qin Huaining didn't look too good. In fact, she could understand Miss Ba and Qin Huaining's feelings. It was not easy to talk about the marriage, but it was repeatedly delayed by family matters. Her two children were almost 2 years old. Qin Huaining, who was the same age as her, and Miss Ba, who was a little younger than her, were still unmarried. Now that they had moved to Shiyu, the marriage of the two ladies was even more uncertain. They couldn't be blamed for feeling sad. If this happened to anyone, it would be hard to let go. Qin Huaining wanted to persuade them, but considering that she married into the highest family among her cousins, if she went to persuade them, it would be hard to avoid suspicion that she was just standing there and talking without knowing her own backside. Thus, she turned around and quietly pulled on Qin Han's sleeve. Second older brother, I see that Miss Ba and Huaining seem to have something on their minds. Later, let second older sister-in-law go take a look. Qin Han was surprised and looked at the backs of Qin Huaining and Miss Ba. He immediately understood. Don't worry, I'll go personally. I'll definitely comfort them. The Han family's second young mistress sometimes had small thoughts. She was easily overwrought with many things that she couldn't resolve herself. Qin Yining was also somewhat afraid that she would persuade them and make them even more uncomfortable. It would be better if Qin Han was willing to go personally. Pang Xiao walked to Qin Yining's side and greeted him with a smile. After Qin Han walked away, Pang Xiao said, I'll go back to the barracks to take a look. I won't be coming tonight. Be a good girl at home. Hearing his coaxing tone, Qin Yining laughed out loud. Don't worry, I'm not a 3-year-old child. Besides, the whole family is here, so there's nothing to worry about. Pang Xiao smiled and nodded. These days, he and Qin Yining had been sticking together and occasionally had to be separated. He still felt unaccustomed to it. He sighed and stroked her soft cheeks with his large hand. Be good. If there's anything, just send someone to tell me. Don't shoulder it by yourself. Qin Yining nodded. She felt as if she was being held in the palm of his hand and couldn't help but reveal a big smile. The little dimples on her cheeks were especially lovable. Pang Xiao also smiled at her, but he still used all his strength to walk out. He felt that if he looked at her a few more times, he wouldn't be able to walk out of the house today. Seeing Pang Xiao walk away with large strides, Qin Yining smiled and turned around. She saw Qin Huaiyuan looking at her with a smile. Father. Qin Yining's cheeks flushed. Qin Huaiyuan smiled and said, Zhishi went to the military camp? That's right. He still has something to take care of. This time, he arranged for a substitute to be there. If he wants to walk around openly, there's still a process. Qin Huaiyuan nodded with a smile. Qin Yining followed Qin Huaiyuan out of the old matriarch CI, Shao Garden, and took a stroll along the small path in the residence. Father must have gone through a narrow escape this time, right? Qin Yining said with a long sigh. At that time, I discovered this in the palace, but I was under house arrest. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to pass on the news. Fortunately, I still remember that Father mentioned eunuch Jiang Yuan to me at that time, so I passed on the news to the Qingtian Alliance. However, I was afraid that the people from the Qingtian Alliance wouldn't be able to make it in time. There was no need for Qin Yining to say it in detail. Qin Huaiyuan could imagine the scene at that time. Qin Yining was trapped alone in the palace, and Pang Xiao was far away in the south. She had to face the Taitan princess deliberately, making things difficult for her. She had to advance step by step in the palace and not leave any evidence for others to use against her. She also had to think of a way to pass on the news. These were not considered. The most exhausting thing was that the mountain was high and the road was far away. She simply didn't know whether everything she did was useful or not. Qin Huaiyuan stopped his tracks and patted Qin Yining's shoulder with heartache. Thousands of words turned into a long sigh. The situation was like this. As Qin Huaiyuan's daughter, she enjoyed glory, splendor, wealth, and leisure, but she had to worry and fear a lot. It's father who brought you down. Child, you've had a bad life since you were young. Because of father fever's troubles, you were swapped out by bad people and suffered outside for 14 years. Now that father thinks about it, it's hard to imagine how you survived when you were 8 years old and went into the mountains alone. Not to mention that you were only 8 years old at that time. Even if father went into the mountains now, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to survive. In the end, father is not a qualified father. At that time, father was muddle-headed and didn't support you. As a result, when you returned home, you were suspected by your mother. You didn't enjoy much of the warmth of a family. Later, father even brought you down. I had to bring you to the peace talks. You were involved in the matters of the imperial court. You were almost eaten by the demon empress, and you were caught up in the drought and famine. Father, why do you have to brood over the past? No matter how difficult it was at that time, didn't extreme misfortune turn to bliss in the end? Yes, but that's because you were smart and you did a good job. Qin Huayuan sighed and said, in general, Father feels guilty towards you because Father didn't give you a comfortable life like other noble young ladies. Now, I'm going to take my family and escape, leaving you here. Qin Huayuan lowered his eyes and looked at Qin Yining. His eyes were filled with sorrow and guilt. When Qin Yining saw her father like this, she also felt sad. She forced herself to be spirited and said with a smile, Father, don't say that. The current situation is already different from before. The world has just been settled, and the Titan is temporarily powerless to disturb the borders. There's also a small emperor in the south who is no longer a threat. Today's emperor is full of ambition, scheming, and suspicious. How could he tolerate Pang Zhishi? Our family can't stay here like fools and become living targets. You should take everyone related to us and leave. That's the best thing to do. Moreover, they don't know what Xie is like, but do you think I don't know? Although the customs, they're simple and honest, it has been isolated for many years. If we want to build Xie up, it won't be done in a day. Father already has to work hard to mediate the relationships between several families. I'm afraid you'll have to spend even more effort on the construction of Xie. Father still has a lot of things to do in the future. Qin Yining thought of the vast oasis. It was almost equivalent to a piece of undeveloped land, and its geographical location was very different from the old capital. It was much hotter there, and her family would probably need a long time to adapt. In addition, everyone in the family had their own thoughts. As the head of the family, Qin Huayuan had to mediate. She could already imagine her family Qin's future life in Xie. Qin Huayuan lowered his eyes and shook his head. These are all things that I should do as a father. I'm just worried about you. Qin Yining knew what Qin Huayuan meant. She smiled freely and said, Father, you don't have to worry. Wang Yi will protect me. Moreover, now that our family is in a safe place, His Highness and I will be able to do whatever we want. So, you mean you don't plan to persuade Wang Yi to stay away from the disputes and live in seclusion in the mountains? Qin Yining pondered for a moment, then told Qin Huayuan about the Tian Jizi in detail. She's a strange person. Even now, she's willing to be put under house arrest by Wang Yi in the army. I think she just doesn't want to leave. She believes in destiny and cares a lot about the divination from back then. I think she's always wanted the Ziwei Emperor Star to take that position. If we have the same goal and common interests as her, then it's fine. But if we go against her ideas, she can blow up the Imperial Mausoleum in Beiji. Who knows if she'll blow up the capital next time? Although the desert is a natural barrier for Xie, it can't stop Tian Jizi. If Wang Yi and I live in seclusion, you'll become Tian Jizi's targets, regardless of whether we go to the desert or not. Now that things have come to this point, I think it's better to put all our eggs in one basket and completely solve all the problems. Otherwise, there'll be endless troubles in the future. Qin Huayuan listened to Qin Yining's words and slowly widened his eyes in shock. Sister Yi, what I heard, why does it sound like we should comply with the Tian Jizi's divination? Chapter 876. If sacrificing our lives can quell this chaos and bring peace to the world, then that's fine. But His Majesty doesn't just want our lives. With His Majesty's temperament, he'll definitely kill everyone. He'd rather kill 1,000 innocents than let a single one go. Wang Yi and I aren't alone. We have family, friends, and people who follow us. Those people also have their own families. We're in this position now. To put it bluntly, we're already riding a tiger. The two of us can die, but what about everyone else? We don't have the power to ask everyone to die for the sake of world peace. No one was raised in 18 months. Why should we sacrifice ourselves for the sake of the majority? Moreover, in my opinion, His Majesty isn't a wise ruler. He's wildly ambitious. He's created chaos, and he's done countless things that waste people's money. Moreover, he's afraid of meritorious officials. He persecutes meritorious officials. I don't believe that such a narrow-minded and suspicious ruler can protect this country well. If he continues to cause trouble and Tianjiji stirs things up again, Dezhou will be in chaos again in less than 10 years. Qin Huaiyuan didn't expect Qin Yining to say something like this at this time. Fortunately, there were only the two of them here. If Li Qitian knew about this, he'd killed Qin Yining several times. However, Qin Huaiyuan wasn't surprised that Qin Yining had such thoughts. Have you made your decision? Qin Huaiyuan asked. Qin Yining smiled and said, since we can't live in seclusion, this is the only way. You have to know that if you choose this path, the suffering you'll face will be unimaginable. Perhaps it'll be even more difficult than before. But Wang Yi and I don't seem to have any other choice now. Father and daughter both fell silent. After a long time, Qin Huaiyuan said, many times it's not about what we want to do, but what we can do. Father also knows that you and Jishi are sensible people. If you have decided, Father will also support you. However, all of you must take good care of yourselves. Remember to prioritize your own safety in all matters. You must not let your emotions affect your decisions. Yes, your daughter will remember. Qin Yining smiled. There were many things he wanted to say, such as telling Qin Huaiyuan to take good care of himself, and telling him that if anything happened to her and Pang Xiao in the future, the children would be entrusted to him. However, after pondering for a moment, he didn't say such harsh words. With his father's intelligence, even if he didn't say it out loud, he would understand it in his heart. Since he understood, why should he say more and cause the two of them to feel sad? Qin Yining changed the topic. Father, I wanted to ask why I didn't see Annie Chow today. He had thought that this was a relaxing topic that could at least distract Qin Huaiyuan. Who would have thought that when he heard this? Qin Huaiyuan's footsteps paused. There was even a strange, stiff expression on his face. It's nothing. Perhaps she had something to do and went out. Qin Huaiyuan stammered. Aren't you going back to see Brother Zhao and Brother Han? Originally, they had been chatting well. Why did Qin Huaiyuan rush to chase him away when Chao Yuqing was mentioned? Qin Yining was certain that there was something fishy going on. However, she was a daughter and not a son, so it wasn't good to ask in detail. He followed Qin Huaiyuan's wishes and said, I was just about to go see my mother. I'll go back and accompany the children later. That's fine. I'll go discuss this relocation with your second and third uncles. Qin Yining bowed to his father and went to Xingming Garden to see the Sun Clan. The Sun Clan member had a gentle smile on his face. He was currently instructing Mother Jean to bring people to check the contents of the boxes. When she saw Qin Yining, she smiled and said, Sister E, come here quickly. Mother. Qin Yining bowed respectfully and then sat down next to the Sun Clan member with a smile. The Sun Clan member took her hand and said with a smile, Your complexion looks better after this trip. That's right. Although it was a serious matter, I won't be at a disadvantage when I'm with Wang Yi. That's good. I can rest assured that he's good to you. Once you and son-in-law are done with your business, you must come back as soon as possible. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. Yes, Mother. Don't worry. The Sun Clan was still the same as before. They weren't good at these kinds of things. Qin Yining also didn't want her to know about these troublesome matters. The Sun Clan member smiled and said, Where's your father? Father went to the front to discuss the itinerary with second and third uncles. The Sun Clan member nodded, but there was a hint of hesitation in her expression. Qin Yining immediately noticed the Sun Clan member's strange expression and couldn't help but ask with a smile, Mother, do you have something to tell your daughter? Not really, but there's something I want to tell you. The Sun Clan member smiled and said, I plan to ask Chao Yuqing to marry into the family and become your father's concubine. Qin Yining was very surprised. Based on her understanding, the Sun Clan member was definitely not a magnanimous person. Although the Sun Clan wouldn't kill the 4 concubines that Qin Huaiyuan took in for his son, she was still unhappy when Qin Huaiyuan went to the concubines' rooms. Why would she take the initiative to ask Chao Yuqing to marry into the family this time? Perhaps the Sun Clan member saw her surprise, so she sighed and said, After going through so much, I've already gotten over it. Your father is fine, and that's better than anything else. Moreover, how many years can a person live? Your father and I have already left halfway, and we don't want to be unhappy because of these things. Although Chao Yuqing's background isn't good, she's a good woman who is affectionate and righteous. Her heart is with your father, and for your father, she would even do her best to protect you and me. She's so affectionate that even a stone would be warmed. Your father already has the intention of being moved. I've also thought that if a beauty like Chao Yuqing marries into the family, your father wouldn't fancy anyone else, right? It's better than old Madam making the decision to bring in 3 or 4 women in the future. With such a person who knows everything, our family's days can be more peaceful. Qin Yining heard this and couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for the Sun clan. From this, it seemed that the Sun clan was more open-minded and polite than her. If she were to think about it from another perspective, if a stunning beauty was wholeheartedly devoted to Pang Xiao and risked her life for Pang Xiao, and Pang Xiao also had feelings for her, she would probably hate him with jealousy instead of accepting him. She would only feel that she had been betrayed because she had never given less than anyone else. Presumably, it was the same for the Sun clan. "Mother, do you feel wronged?" The Sun clan member was stunned, and her smile was a bit bitter. "I feel wronged, and I also feel jealous. It's even more difficult to imagine my husband being with another woman." Taking a deep breath, the Sun clan member smiled again. "But in this world, there are always some things that are more important than your own feelings." Qin Yining truly admired the Sun clan's change of heart. She hugged the Sun clan member and silently patted her back to comfort her. The Sun clan member also hugged Qin Yining and continued, "However, although your father has nodded, Madame Chao has tactfully refused. These days, she has been staying in the guest courtyard and is unwilling to come to the Fu. It's not good for me to force her, so this matter has been stalled." Qin Yining was very surprised. She was well aware of Chao Yuqing's painstaking efforts and dedication to Qin Huaiyuan. It was rare for Qin Huaiyuan to agree, and the Sun clan also nodded. What did Chao Yuqing mean by not agreeing at this time? Chao Yuqing had entered the family Qin as a concubine and had seriously competed with the Sun clan for favor. She shouldn't mind the status of a concubine. Then why? Qin Yining hesitated and said, "Do you want me to go and talk to her? You are a married daughter. How can you talk to your father about this kind of thing?" The Sun clan member burst into laughter. "All right, you don't have to worry about this matter. I will go and talk to her. She is unwilling to marry into the Fu, so there must be a knot in her heart. If there is a misunderstanding, it will be fine." Qin Yining saw the Sun clan member's gentle smile and gentle tone, so she knew that she sincerely wanted to matchmake them. She didn't say anything else and only nodded. "Mother, no matter what you do, as long as it is from the bottom of your heart, the daughter will support you." "Yes." The Sun clan member nodded, but her eyes were moist. She had already discussed this matter with Madame Zheng. The reason why she could be so open-minded was also the result of Madame Zheng's mediation. Qin Huaiyuan wasn't a person who indulged in beauty. Madame Chao was doing her best. As the matriarch, if she still didn't agree, then it would be a bit too unreasonable. If she agreed, it would also depend on Qin Huaiyuan's opinion. If Qin Huaiyuan refused, she wouldn't persuade him. If Qin Huaiyuan agreed, she would try her best to make peace. Now that Qin Huaiyuan had agreed, the Sun clan also knew that they couldn't stop matters of the heart. Moreover, Madame Chao herself wasn't annoying. But even though they understood the reason, their hearts still ached. The Sun clan member hugged Qin Yining and closed her eyes to cry silently. Qin Yining also felt very uncomfortable. But since the elders had already decided, as a married daughter, she had no reason to say anything. Qin Yining returned to her room worriedly. Zhao Gu and Han Gu had eaten their fill. They were being watched by Xian Yun, Qiu Lu, and the others as they played the 9 linked rings on the arhut bed. When they saw Qin Yining, the 2 children happily jumped up and down, shouting, "Mother, mother, hug, hug, hug." Qin Yining's heart almost melted. She quickly walked over, hugged the children, and kissed each of them. "Mother's precious sweetheart, Mother missed you so much." Zhao Gu and Han Gu giggled and smeared saliva on Qin Yining's face together. The mother and children huddled together and laughed and played for a long time. The sound of their laughter could be heard outside. When they were tired from playing, Sheen Ening lay down with the children in her arms and asked softly, "Do you like grandfather and grandmother?" "Yes." "What grandfather taught you, did you learn it?" "Of course we learned it." Hangu sat up. Hangu is the smartest. He learned it as soon as he learned it. Zhao Gu nodded heavily, indicating that he was also the smartest. Sheen Ening smiled and nodded. Looking at the two children's innocent and cute smiling faces, they still didn't know that they were going to be separated from mother and son. She didn't know how long this separation would take, and she didn't even know if it would be a lifetime. "Mother, why are you crying?" Hangu crawled over on all fours and wiped Sheen Ening's tears with his small hands. Zhao Gu was originally smiling, but now his little face became serious. He pursed his lips and said, "Mother, don't cry." Sheen Ening smiled, but as she smiled, she squeezed out more tears. She got up and hugged the two children in her arms. "Mother is fine. Mother just can't bear to part with you too." Zhao Gu continued to pout. Chapter 877. Mother, Hangu won't leave without eating some snacks. Hangu hugged Sheen Ening's neck, tears falling down his cheeks. Seeing his younger brother cry, Zhao Gu also sobbed, holding his mouth and crying sadly. The mother and children who were playing happily just a moment ago now huddled together and cried. The servant girls hurriedly gathered around. Xian Yun and Xiao Lu picked up the two sobbing little ancestors and coaxed them. Bing Tang also took out a handkerchief to give Qin Ening. "Wang Fei, what are you doing? Don't cry. You're making the children sad. If you accumulate depression, it's not good for your health." Qin Ening nodded, wiped away her tears, and forced herself to squeeze out a smile. "Okay, don't cry. It's my fault for making you cry." Holding the two children in her arms, Qin Ening kissed their cheeks and smiled. "In a few days, you'll follow grandfather and grandmother to our hometown." "Mother, we're going together?" Zhao Gu wrinkled his small brows, tears still stuck to his long eyelashes. Qin Ening suppressed the bitterness in her heart and said with a smile, "Mother and your father still have things to do." "Mother, Zhao Gu, are you not eating any snacks?" Hangu also isn't eating. Seeing that the two children were about to cry again, Qin Ening hurriedly hugged them and coaxed them, finally making them feel better. "This time, Mother isn't going to do something to buy snacks for you. Instead, I'm going out to play with your father." "Mother, can't you bring Hangu?" "You can't. When Hangu and Zhao Gu grow up, you can go out to play." When they heard that Qin Ening was actually going out to play and couldn't accompany them, Zhao Gu was still fine, but Hangu was already pouting. "Mother, just bring Hangu. When you're a little older, Mother will take you." It took a while to make the two pouting children happy again. After all, a child's physical strength was limited. After talking for a while, they were already sleepy. Qin Ening carried them into the bedroom and asked Bing Tang to warm up the bed with a hot water bottle. Then he hummed a tune and gently patted them to coax them to sleep. After everyone fell asleep, Qin Ening quietly walked out of the room. Bing Tang lowered his voice and asked, "Why did Wang Fei change her words this time?" In the past, old Madame Zheng coaxed the two young masters well. Qin Ening smiled bitterly and helplessly. "You all know about our family's relocation, right?" Hearing this, the maidservants all nodded. Qin Ening said, "This time, everyone, including all of you, will be leaving with your families. I will be staying behind to accompany Wang Yi. The road ahead is unknown. After parting with the children this time, I'm not sure when I'll see them again or if I'll never see them again." At this point, Qin Ening felt a lump in his throat. It took him a lot of effort to suppress his tears. "If we can't meet again, I don't want them to think that Wang Yi and I went out to buy snacks for them. This will become a wound in their hearts that can't be erased. It's better to say that Wang Yi and I went out to play." When the maidservants heard this, tears fell from their eyes. Bing Tang said, "Wang Fei, I'm not leaving. I want to stay." "Bing Tang, I know what you're thinking, but it's too dangerous for me and Wang Yi to stay by our side. You and all of you." Qin Ening looked at the others. I can't drag all of you into danger. All of you will follow my father and the others and start a new life at Shiyu. It's a pity that I went back on my words. Back then, I said that I would choose good in-laws for all of you and marry you off grandly. But now, I can't care about that anymore. Ji Yun stomped her feet. Wang Fei, what are you talking about? What do you mean by tired? If it weren't for Wang Yi, I would have starved to death or been kidnapped. How could I live a clean and happy life? Wang Fei treats me sincerely. How can I leave at such a crucial time? Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I'm not afraid. That's right, Wang Fei. Xian Yun and Xiu Lu nodded. Lian Xiaozhou grabbed Qin Yining's arm. Older sister, I'm not leaving either. If it weren't for you, I might still be a little savage on the mountain. I might have been eaten by wild beasts, bitten to death by snakes, or frozen to death or starved to death. I'm not leaving. I want to stay with you. The little girl who couldn't even speak clearly in the past was now fair and tender. Bing Tang liked to bring her along no matter what he did. Lian Xiaozhou was like heaven and earth compared to the past. Qin Yining was moved by her words. But even if she was moved, she couldn't change her mind. I'm well aware of your intentions. Qin Yining looked at them one by one and sighed. This time, you have to listen to my arrangements. You can't disobey. Moreover, there's so many people at home. When I'm not here, I'm counting on you to take care of them, especially the two young ones. Although Qin Yining's tone was gentle, her attitude was very firm. Bing Tang lowered her eyes. In any case, Huzi will follow Wang Yi. I don't want to be so far away from Huzi. Moreover, if Wang Fei doesn't have a single servant girl by her side, won't people be suspicious? Moreover, Wang Fei also needs a trustworthy doctor. I will definitely follow Princess Consort. Qin Yining opened her mouth, but she couldn't find the words to refute. Ji Yun took advantage of the situation and said, Bing Tang is right. If Wang Fei doesn't have anyone by her side following her, people will be suspicious. These days, this servant and Bing Tang have been following you everywhere. Xian Yun and Xiu Lu are also familiar with taking care of little young master. Why don't you let the two of us follow you as usual? Qin Yining was a little helpless when he heard this. At this time, whoever follows me will be Wang Fei. Before Qin Yining could finish speaking, a servant girl outside the door hurriedly replied, There's a young lady outside. She said that she's from the Mu family and is here to ask for help. Qin Yining stood up and suddenly thought that Xiu Feishan's pregnancy should be complete. Mu Jinghu and Xiu Feishan didn't have any elders by their side. Even if Tian Jizi wasn't locked up, she might not be reliable. Although there were nannies at home who knew how to give birth for many years, they didn't have any experience. It was normal for them to panic when they encountered something. Qin Yining hurriedly said, Quick, quick, quick. Perhaps Mrs. Mu is about to give birth. Bing Tang, accompany me to take a look. Yes. Everyone responded and hurriedly went to prepare. As Qin Yining changed his clothes, he ordered Bing Tang and Ji Yun to bring everything that should be brought. Afraid that Xiu Feishan wasn't prepared, he even brought along one of the family's nannies. After leaving the house, they got into the carriage and sped all the way to the Mu family. Seeing that Qin Yining had brought people over, the Mu family's servants hurriedly led the way inside. Qin Yining arrived at the main room and saw Bing standing in the corridor, jumping up and down to instruct the servant girl to boil water. He hurriedly asked, How's your Mrs. Mu? Did you invite a doctor and a midwife? Also, where's your master? When Bing saw Qin Yining, it was as if she saw her savior. Wang Fei, you're here. Bing curtsied and spoke as if she was pouring beans. Mrs. Mu is having a fit and looks very uncomfortable. We've already invited 2 midwives, but the doctor hasn't arrived yet. My master went to the barracks last night and hasn't returned yet. Mrs. Mu is due to give birth in these 2 days, but my master still went out. It's really, Mrs. Mu was having a fit just now, and this servant was really flustered. This servant doesn't know anything, so the first thing I thought of was to ask for your help. My Mrs. Mu trusts you the most. Qin Yining smiled and said, The good relationship between the Tong family is naturally not ordinary. Don't panic, I brought a doctor here. I was afraid that you didn't invite a wet nurse, so I even brought my brother's wet nurse. Don't worry, your Mrs. Moo will be fine. When Being heard this, she was so moved that tears almost fell. She knelt down and kowtowed 3 times. Thank you, Wang Fei. Thank you, Wang Fei. You're welcome. Quickly get up and arrange for them to prepare more hot water. Being nodded and hurriedly went to arrange it. Qin Yining asked Bing Tang to take a look inside and then arrange for someone to report to the barracks. She herself went to the delivery room to visit Xiu Feishan. At the same time, the situation in the barracks was not easy. Pang Xiao had already changed back to his daily service. The substitute, who replaced him, had already finished his work and returned to being Jinghu Wei. At this time, he and Huzi stood behind Pang Xiao, one on the left and one on the right. Chapter 878. There is only one simple sentence on the imperial edict. By the will of the heavens, the emperor decrees, the south has been pacified. Return to the capital as soon as possible. Xiaoyu cupped his hands and said, replying to Wang Yi, Your Majesty has sent 7 oral edicts urging you to return to the capital. When we received the first oral edict, this old man and Brother Su discussed it and decided to temporarily claim illness. We didn't expect Your Majesty to send 6 oral edicts within a month. Looking at the time, he didn't wait for a reply before sending people over. The 7th oral edict also ordered the eunuch to personally visit you. Fortunately, the eunuch didn't find any flaws. That's right. Thanks to Brother Xie's disguise, the eunuch didn't notice anything strange. Su Weiji also said, however, Your Majesty sent this edict, which means he can't wait any longer. Xiaoyu added, can't wait any longer is a euphemism. Your Majesty's current situation should be that the Emperor is furious. If Wang Yi doesn't respond quickly, Your Majesty's next edict might not just be urging you to return. Pang Xiao nodded. How could he not know what Xiaoyu said? His fingers lightly tapped the table. The orange candlelight in the tent reflected the outline of his handsome face. He looked at the bright yellow imperial edict on the table. After a long time, he said, It looks like I have to make plans to return to the capital. Wang Yi plans to return? But you've been running the South Pacifying Army for so long. Everything has just gotten on the right track. If you return now, Your Majesty can arrange for other people. The South Pacifying Army might not be as loyal to you as the Tiger Army. I'm also clear on this point. However, things aren't as bad as I expected. Pang Xiao smiled confidently. This king is confident that he has some skill in leading troops. Although he can't compare to the Tiger Army's feelings, the South Pacifying Army won't be so bad as to not recognize people in the blink of an eye. Xiaoyu and Su Weiji also nodded. They had to admit that Pang Xiao had a unique talent when it came to leading troops. He also had an exceptionally convincing temperament. On the battlefield, he had always been at the front and at the back. He would never disregard the lives of any of his soldiers. He saved the wounded soldiers, but for those who were injured and could no longer be soldiers, he didn't care if they were given some money by others. Many soldiers who were disabled like that would become burdens to their families when they returned home. How many years could a small amount of compensation last? However, Pang Xiao would never give up on them from the very beginning. Qin Yining even arranged for the wounded soldiers to work in his own farm. Who knew how many wounded soldiers he had raised? Even for those who died in battle, Pang Xiao would privately send the compensation that Dezhou didn't give. He would never allow his brothers who died in battle to close their eyes. In the eyes of the enemy, Pang Xiao was an evil spirit who killed without batting an eyelid. However, in the eyes of the people of Dezhou, he was a hero who opened up new territory and pacified the world. He was a cornerstone that supported the stability of the country. That was why Li Qitian was so afraid of him. Since this matter had been decided, Pang Xiao asked Huzi, Has Yuan Yujiang been locked up? Yes. Huzi nodded and said, It has been handled properly. Wang Yi, you don't have to worry. Has young Master Mu come to see his martial uncle recently? Xiaoyu smiled and said, He came today. He hasn't left yet. Pang Xiao smiled and nodded. He stood up and said, I'll go find him. Unexpectedly, before Pang Xiao could find Mu Jinghu, someone rushed in from outside to report. Wang Yi, Wang Fei has sent someone to report that Mrs. Mu is about to give birth. She wants young Master Mu to return quickly. Pang Xiao was stunned. He hurriedly strode out of Tian Jizi's room to find Mu Jinghu. Mu Jinghu was chatting with Tian Jizi through the door at this moment. When he heard the footsteps from outside, he also took offense. However, as the footsteps came closer, he and Tian Jizi both stopped talking and turned to look at the door. "Blockhead, why are you here at this time?" Mu Jinghu said happily. "You're back." "Yes." "Hey, this isn't the time to talk about this. Your wife is about to give birth. Go back quickly." Mu Jinghu looked as if he was struck by lightning. He said blankly, Really? Of course it's true. Sister, he just sent someone to tell you. Why aren't you going back home?" Yes. Mu Jinghu spun around on the spot. As if he had just regained his senses, he turned around and told Tian Jizi, "Marshal uncle, I'll leave first." As soon as he finished speaking, he ran past Pang Xiao like a gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Pang Xiao thought of the day when Qin Yining gave birth. Perhaps he was as silly as Mu Jinghu. He couldn't help but shake his head in amusement and quickly walked out. Tian Jizi, who was a door away, pressed her ear against the door and heard the footsteps outside. She angrily slammed the door with both hands and said, "Come back, hey? What's wrong with you two? Why haven't you let me out since you've settled the matter? Come back." However, her voice echoed in the corridor, but no one responded. Tian Jizi angrily sat back down at the table, eating snacks while sulking. By the time Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu rode their horses to the Mu residence, the sky was already dark. The bright moon hung high in the sky, its silvery white light covered by the bright red lanterns in the residence. Walking in the outer courtyard, Mu Jinghu's hands and feet turned cold. He looked back at Pang Xiao and said anxiously, "What should we do? I heard that when a woman gives birth, it's like walking through the gates of hell." Why am I a little scared? Why is this residence so quiet? Will anything happen? Don't talk nonsense, Pang Xiao urged. You're still far away. What do you expect to hear? Why aren't you going inside? Oh, what about you? Pang Xiao was angered by Mu Jinghu's silly look and laughed. I'm a man outside. How can I enter your residence? Why aren't you going inside? Oh. Mu Jinghu seemed to have just woken up. He leaped onto the wall and disappeared without a trace. Huzi followed Pang Xiao here. When he saw Mu Jinghu's appearance, he laughed until his stomach hurt. Pang Xiao also found it funny. However, when Qin Yining gave birth, he was probably not much better than Mu Jinghu. Qiu Feishan's body was still healthy, unlike Qin Yining's suffering. That night, the baby's loud cries spread throughout the residence. Congratulations, Master. It's a young master. The midwife trotted out to announce the good news. The old capital was already very cold in the middle of November. Mu Jinghu was spinning in the courtyard outside, but the steam coming out of her head was dense. Hearing this, he rushed into the delivery room with a whoosh. Qin Yining was holding a hand warmer and asking the midwife about Qiu Feishan's situation. He heard a burst of happy laughter coming from the room, followed by Mu Jinghu's silly voice. Shan, I'm a father. You're a mother." This silly look made everyone laugh. The midwife smiled and said, "Madam is young and strong. She usually pays attention to taking care of herself. Princess, don't worry, everything is fine." Qin Yining was finally relieved. Hearing the joyful noise in the room, she left the inner residence of the Mu family with a smile. When he saw Pang Xiao in the outer courtyard, Qin Yining smiled and said, "Qiu Feishan gave birth to a son. We should also prepare a congratulatory gift." "What you said, we came in a hurry and didn't have time to prepare." Pang Xiao turned around and said to Huzi, "Send someone to tell Tian Jizi the good news." Huzi smiled and nodded, then ran away. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining left the Mu residence side by side. At this time, everyone in the residence was celebrating, especially Mu Jinghu, who was probably laughing silly. The two of them didn't want to disturb him. Chapter 879. Qin Yining propped herself up with her arms. Her soft, black hair fell from her shoulders onto the light-colored mattress. "We just came back. Why is he here already?" Did something happen to the Chiu family? Pang Xiao pulled up the quilt for her and said with a smile, he won't. If something happened, he would have arranged for someone to report to me. Qin Yining suddenly understood. That's right. Why don't you go and take a look? Yes, go to sleep first. Don't wait for me. If anything happens, I'll send someone to call you. Pang Xiao grabbed his clothes and put them on. Qin Yining lay down on her side. She hugged the blanket and looked at Pang Xiao's tall and slender back. She covered her mouth and yawned. I know. You should wear more clothes. Pang Xiao, who was striding out, stopped when he heard this. He came back and grabbed a large robe to put on. His large hand caressed Qin Yining's cheek. Go to sleep. Be good. Qin Yining smiled and rubbed her face against Pang Xiao's palm. Her eyelids gradually grew heavy, and she fell asleep quickly. Pang Xiao looked at her exquisite side profile and couldn't help but reveal a warm smile. He tucked her in before quietly walking out of the inner room. When Qin Yining opened her eyes early the next morning, she was in Pang Xiao's arms. His arms were around her waist, and he held her tightly in his arms. His legs were clamped around her cold feet. She leaned against his warm and strong body and closed her eyes comfortably. She was a bit afraid of the cold, especially in this weather. Even the tip of her nose was cold when she breathed. She didn't want to leave the bed even more. Qin Yining didn't want to move. She quietly looked up at Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao closed his eyes. His eyelashes were very long, and his eyebrows were relaxed. His thin lips were slightly opened. He looked a bit like a child. She smiled softly. Her eyes were full of love and gentleness as she looked at him. What are you looking at? Pang Xiao suddenly spoke and turned over to press her down. Little miss, you've been looking at me for so long. Could it be that you have some unspeakable thoughts about me? Qin Yining rested his arms on his shoulders and smiled with his almond-shaped eyes. Yes, I have some unspeakable thoughts. Young Lang Jun, you're so handsome. Do you want to be my Lang Jun? Pang Xiao was stunned for a moment, and then she laughed happily. Her laughter shook her chest, and Qin Yining also laughed with her. Her eyes were curved like two crescent moons. The morning light shone in through the light-colored gauze curtain, and her porcelain-white skin seemed to be suffused with a soft halo. The kind of gentle and pure beauty, and also inadvertently revealed a charm that seduced one's mind. Pang Xiao's eyes darkened. He pressed against her soft body and sucked on her lips. The two of them are like two cross-necks. After a long while, she finally stopped, panting. Qin Yining nestled in his arms. Why did Mr. Mu come to see you last night? When Pang Xiao heard this, he burst out laughing. He wrote more than 10 pages of paper, and on it were all the names that he had thought of before. He couldn't make up his mind, so he came to see me. Qin Yining said in surprise. He asked you to help him choose the names? Pang Xiao nodded. Yes, he said that I have experience. You didn't see how he was like. The names he came up with were so difficult to explain in a few words. It's not good for me to name the children directly. When I saw that he was struggling between White Tiger and Celestial Wolf, I was simply speechless. Qin Yining chuckled when she heard this. You're still laughing at him? Back then, I don't know who it was that gathered his strategists and seriously studied for half a day in order to name his son. In any case, Mr. Mu only asked you, a good friend, to discuss it. He didn't force unrelated people to help him think of names. Pang Xiao's face turned red when he heard this. He said stubbornly, if he had an advisor, do you think he wouldn't ask for help? What happened in the end? What name was he given? He couldn't really be called Mu White Tiger or Mu Celestial Wolf, right? Wouldn't that make him a beast? Pang Xiao smiled and said, I advised him to ask for Boss Chiu's opinion. Besides, his martial uncle is also an expert in divination. He might be able to calculate a good name based on the birth characters. When he heard this, he went to the military camp overnight. Qin Yining couldn't stop laughing. He turned around and said, no matter what the child's name is, we have to prepare some practical items before sending them over. We can't be careless. I'll leave it to you. The two of them got up and washed up. Just as they were about to eat breakfast, someone outside said, Mr. Mu is here. Qin Yining smiled and said, I think he has already thought a name. Pang Xiao also smiled. He instructed someone to prepare another set of cutlery and went out to welcome Mu Jinghu. Qin Yining sat at the square table and waited. Not long after, he saw Mu Jinghu and Pang Xiao walking side by side. As they walked, Mu Jinghu pulled Pang Xiao and said something. When the two of them came closer, Qin Yining heard the last few sentences. So, Martial Uncle said that he would give the name in. He said that Brother Yan's birth characters lacked fire, so this name was the best. He also said that he lacked an intelligent and brave adoptive father in his life. I thought that you were the only one who was both intelligent and brave, so I came to find you. Qin Yining smiled and stood up. You've already decided to call him Mu Yin? Yes. Shanshan also said that this name was good. My brother, Yin, wants to acknowledge you as his adoptive parents. What do you think? Although Pang Xiao felt that Tian Jizi was probably talking nonsense, he would not reject him based on his relationship with Mu Jinghu. It's our honor. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao thought of the same thing. They looked at each other and smiled. If that's the case, I'll have to give you a big gift during the third bath. I can't let Brother Yin call me his adoptive mother in the future for nothing. Mu Jinghu smiled very foolishly. It was obvious that he was still immersed in the joy of becoming a father. Pang Xiao invited him to eat. Mu Jinghu did not stand on ceremony. He smiled and talked about how cute and beautiful his son was as he ate. It was rare for Qin Yining to see Mu Jinghu like this. After having a son, he seemed to be 10 years younger. They did not care about not talking while eating. They chatted with Mu Jinghu. Halfway through the meal, Ji Yun suddenly walked in quickly. He bent his knees and said, Wang Yi, your subordinate wants to see you. Pang Xiao did not have any intention of avoiding Mu Jinghu. He asked directly, Is he from the military camp? Ji Yun was bold and said directly, Wang Yi, he's Jinghui who came back from Huichuan County. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's expressions became serious. The two of them did not have time to eat. Mu Jinghu also felt that something was wrong. He followed them to the front hall. When the elite tiger guard saw Pang Xiao, he respectfully saluted. Under Pang Xiao's signal, he said bluntly, Replying to your highness, after this subordinate arrived at Huichuan County and investigated carefully, this subordinate did not find anything abnormal about that place. Pang Xiao frowned and said, Tell me more. Yes. The construction of the Imperial Mausoleum in Huichuan County has stopped. There are a few open spaces near the Imperial Mausoleum that are used to build sheds. The other party is using stones. At this time, there are only a few workers guarding the stones. The Imperial Court has not allocated any money and Huichuan County has no county magistrate. Without a leader, the situation in the county can be said to be bleak. Chapter 880. This result made Pang Xiao somewhat surprised. Mrs. Liao's subordinates wouldn't go to Luzheng for no reason to buy such a dangerous place as the county magistrate. There must be something wrong with Huichuan County. But it was obvious that Jinghu Wei's ability to investigate was not outstanding. Pang Xiao nodded and said, Thank you for your hard work. Go and rest first. Yes. The man cupped his hands in salute and quickly retreated. Qin Yining said, It seems that the other party is very secretive. It won't be easy to find clues. Pang Xiao nodded and said, In fact, no one is more suitable than the Qingtian Alliance to hide in the city and inquire about some information. Look at my subordinates. You can tell at a glance when they stand in the crowd. That's true. Qin Yining nodded. Although the Qingtian Alliance is a group of people with lofty ideals, their ability to inquire about information is indeed first class. It's just that the situation is unclear. We don't know if Mrs. Liao and her two men are still alive, or if they are both alive. We also don't know if they're still in contact with the Qingtian Alliance. If Mrs. Liao is still alive, Liao Zhibing will definitely side with his wife. I really don't dare to take this risk. The people of the Qingtian Alliance might be loyal to her. But since ancient times, wealth moved people's hearts, not to mention such a large amount of wealth that even Li Qitian couldn't ignore. Who didn't want to sit on a mountain of gold and silver and spend it all their life? Who didn't want to leave behind good fortune for their future generations? Qin Yining had been in the city for many years and had seen the nature of people in the face of disaster. She wouldn't judge people with malice, but she also wouldn't think of people as too selfless. Pang Xiao looked down and pondered for a moment. The silver mask spy's assassination and spying skills are not weak. But this time, I want them to follow our family. Qin Yini nodded and said, I think so too. We won't be around, so we can rest assured with more people protecting our family. Father, they will be leaving in a few days. We can't let the silver-masked spy go out again. Pang Xiao put his hand on the edge of the table and tapped his slender index finger on the table. After a while, he said, If it doesn't work, I will go there myself. Qin Yini frowned. You're going there personally? Yes, this is a serious matter. We can't afford to make any mistakes. Pang Xiao said in a deep voice, The whereabouts of the treasure must be tracked down. If we can get it, that would be the best. If not, I'd rather let Mrs. Liao and her group get the treasure than give it to the Emperor. Once he gets his hands on the treasure, he won't care about the disaster of war. His priority will be to exterminate us. That's right. The world has already been decided. Now, the person who threatens his position is you. He will definitely destroy you at all costs. Pang Xiao smiled bitterly. In the end, I'm not that noble. Like me, I'm also selfish. I just want to live. Maybe in the Emperor's eyes, I'm the kind of existence that will endanger his life. That's why he spares no effort for me. Qin Yini saw Pang Xiao sighing and couldn't help but sigh. Then he said seriously, What is noble? What is selfish? We're just ordinary people. Don't force yourself to be immortals. Do you think we're good people if we stretch our necks and wait for Li to chop us up? That's not good. That's stupid. Since ancient times, history has been written by the winner. You think sacrificing yourself for the world's peace is for the good of the people. But who can guarantee that the history books won't smear you? What's more, you have a large group of brothers following you. You also have family. Do you want them to be buried with you? At this point, Qin Yini stood up and looked up at Pang Xiao. His eyes were particularly firm. Don't think so much. Good and evil will naturally be judged by the world. Reality has forced us to walk on this path, so we can only continue. What is right? What is wrong? There's no right or wrong in this world. There's only regret. As Qin Yini spoke, his eyes were as gentle and warm as the moon. His expression was so firm that it surprised him. He didn't expect that Qin Yini had already thought it through so thoroughly when he hadn't figured it out yet. Mu Jinghu had been listening at the side for a long time and more or less understood what they were going to do. He nodded and said, Zhishi, I think your wife is right. You're just carrying too much burden in your heart. Upon hearing this, Pang Xiao looked at Mu Jinghu. Mu Jinghu said, In this world, you don't have to bear anyone's surname. The lives of the people are not your responsibility alone. Don't tell me that if you don't do anything, people won't grow old, get sick, and die. I understand that you don't want to hurt the innocent, but are the innocent only the people on the other side? Aren't your own family members innocent as well? Although Mu Jinghu was a kind person, he was naturally influenced by Tian Jizi after interacting with her for a long time. He didn't value human lives that much. Pang Xiao nodded thoughtfully. The situation was changing, and his inherent thinking should also change. Otherwise, he would be harming others and himself. Then it's settled. When a matter with father-in-law is settled, I'll set off to take a look. When the time comes, get someone to disguise as me as usual. You stay here and observe for me. Pang Xiao instructed Qin Yini. Qin Yini nodded. He was a little reluctant to let Pang Xiao go. However, he also knew that when the two families left, only the husband and wife would be left to support each other. Perhaps in the future, there would be many times when they would have to act separately. It was impossible for them to always have the opportunity to be together. After the matter was settled, Qin Yini left the space to Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu. He returned to the residence to take care of the two children. After thinking for a while, he called Xianyan over and sent the tonics that she had prepared earlier to Qiu Feishan. Tell Mrs. Mu that I'll definitely be there when Brother Yin is bathing. Xianyan smiled and agreed. She quickly went to carry out Qin Yini's instructions. As long as Qin Yini saw Brother Zhao and Brother Han, his thoughts would no longer be on anyone else. The family Qin was ready and about to set off. Qin Yini and the two children were apart from each other. She was determined to stay and accompany Pang Xiao. She didn't know what her future would be like. She was really afraid that she wouldn't have the chance to see her children and family again in the future. However, no matter how afraid and anxious Qin Yining was, he didn't want his emotions to affect others. He was as cheerful as usual when he played with the children. Pang Xiao couldn't bear to leave the house if he could. Looking at Qin Yining wearing clothes that were similar to Brother Zhao and Brother Han's, playing with the two children, teaching them how to read, or teaching them how to recognize flowers and plants, Pang Xiao felt happy when the three of them gathered together. On the third day of the bath, Pang Xiao and Qin Yining brought Brother Zhao and Brother Han to the Mu residence. Qiu Feishan couldn't go out, and Mu Jinghu didn't have any elders. Tian Jizi was locked up by Pang Xiao and didn't plan to let him out. Only Pang Xiao and his wife came. Qin Yining personally put the longevity lock around Mu Yan's neck. The little baby was wrapped in red swaddling clothes and leaned in Qiu Feishan's arms. He was spitting bubbles and looking at Qin Yining with his big eyes. "Look at him, he also likes you." Qiu Feishan looked at Qin Yining with a smile. Qin Yining went to tease Brother Yin with a smile. The child grinned and said, "Oh, he's so cute. This child has inherited the advantages of you and Mr. Mu. He'll definitely be a handsome child in the future." Qiu Feishan leaned on the big pillow and smiled. Brother Zhao and Brother Han jumped on the ground. Mother, Brother Han wants to see little brother. I also want to see little brother." Qiu Feishan smiled and said, "They will be brothers in the future. Let them see." Saying that, she carefully handed the swaddling clothes to Qin Yining. Qin Yining hugged Brother Yin and sat down on the side. Brother Zhao and Brother Han came over, one on the left and one on the right. The two children had the same curious face. Brother Han stretched out his finger to poke Brother Yan's cheek, but was stopped by Brother Zhao. "Little brother is small. Don't touch him." Brother Han put his hands behind his back, blinked his big black grape-like eyes seriously, and asked Qin Yining, "Mother, was Brother Han this small before?" "Yes." "Will he grow taller than Brother Han?" Looking at his son, who was less than 2 years old, Qin Yining laughed. "Brother Han, are you afraid that little brother will grow taller than you?" "I'm not afraid." Brother Han was stubborn. Brother Zhao said, "Mother, I will eat more. I also have to eat more so that I can grow taller. Otherwise, won't this wrinkled little guy soon catch up?" Qin Yining understood the two children's meaning. He looked at Qiu Feishan with joy. Qiu Feishan also couldn't help but laugh. If Brother Yin can be as lively and smart as the two young masters in the future, I will be satisfied. He will. Children grow fast. They will grow up in the blink of an eye. Wang Fei. At this moment, Ji Yun came in and saluted. She leaned close to Qin Yining's ear and whispered, "Master Zhong wants to see you." Qin Yining was a little surprised. Master Zhong went to the capital a while ago, and she and Pang Xiao went to deal with the Qiu family's official business. Qin Yining was relieved to hand over all the business matters to Master Zhong. He must have encountered some problems. Qin Yining smiled and returned the swaddling clothes to Qiu Feishan's arms. "I have something to do." Qiu Feishan smiled and nodded. Qin Yining handed the children to Ji Yun and quickly went out of the door. Along the way to the front hall of the Mu family, Master Zhong was eating tea at this time. When he saw Qin Yining, he hurriedly came forward and saluted. "Wang Fei." "Master Zhong, you don't have to be so polite. I haven't seen you for a long time. Are you still healthy?" "It's all thanks to you. This old one's health is still good. I came back this time because I have something to report. I just went to Qin Manor, and the people in the manor told me that you and Wang Yi are here." As he spoke, Master Zhong looked around. Qin Yining understood his concerns and smiled. "Why don't we take a walk in the courtyard?" "All right." Qin Yining believed in Mu Jinghu, but Mu Jinghu's servants were not necessarily good. She and Master Zhong went to the open space in the courtyard and stood still. Master Zhong then whispered, "Wang Fei, Home Master Liao sent me a message. He asked me to tell you that the matter of Guangqing's grain store has been settled. The silver has been delivered properly, and the grain store will be closed immediately." Chapter 881. When Master Zhong said this, he was also very surprised. Although he didn't see the situation that day with his own eyes, he heard Qin Yining mention the situation that day when they were chatting. He could imagine how serious the situation in the desert was. After being interrogated, the people couldn't tell the direction and there was no water. How did they get out? He didn't know how others did it. He knew that he absolutely couldn't do it. Qin Yining frowned and asked, did these two people contact Home Master Liao and Home Master Qiao, or did they contact someone else in the alliance? Did they say what they were going to do? Replying to Princess, they contacted Hall Master Liao. Hall Master Liao knew that when Mrs. Liao died in the desert, these two people were with her. He felt that something was wrong and discussed it with Hall Master Qiao. They didn't dare to make this matter public. After the two of them discussed it, they quietly sent me a message. Listening to Hall Master Liao's meaning, he felt that these two people were too suspicious. He was afraid that they would do something related to the treasure. Because he was afraid of delaying your matter, he asked me to quickly report back to you and ask for your instructions on what to do next. Qin Yining slowly nodded and fell into deep thought. She didn't doubt the Qin-Tian alliance, but she was worried that some people in the alliance couldn't resist the temptation of human instincts and greed, who would want such a large amount of treasure that could be theirs. The other party contacted Liao Zhibing probably because of his relationship with Mrs. Liao. If Mrs. Liao went, Liao Zhibing, like most people, would think that he should have a share of the treasure or simply think that the treasure should belong to him alone. Even Qin Yining guessed so. But now, Liao Zhibing told her such an important news. If Liao Zhibing had the heart to monopolize the treasure, he only needed to keep this matter to himself and hide it from her. Why would he ask Master Zhong to send her a message? Liao Zhibing had always been trustworthy. He even knew where Shiyu was. For such a long time, she didn't see Liao Zhibing take revenge on her because of Mrs. Liao. Even when she rescued her father, it was thanks to Liao Zhibing that they arrived in time. Now, Liao Zhibing hurriedly asked Master Zhong to send the message as soon as he got the news. The tenant proved his loyalty. This made Qin Yining, who was on guard, feel a little embarrassed. She was really too narrow-minded. Qin Yining thought for a moment, then signaled for Master Zhong to take a seat. He went outside to find a servant of the Mu family and said, ask Wang Yi to come here. Tell him that I have something to discuss with him. That person hurriedly saluted and walked away with a face full of reverence. Not long after, Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu arrived. Master Zhong quickly got up and saluted Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao smiled and helped him up with one hand. Please get up. He then turned around and introduced Mu Jinghu to him. This is Mr. Mu. Master Zhong and Mu Jinghu had met a few times before, so they greeted each other naturally. Mu Jinghu ordered the servants to serve hot tea again. The four of them sat down according to their identities. After dismissing the servants, Pang Xiao arranged for someone to stand guard outside. Qin Yining asked Master Zhong to tell him in detail about Liao Zhibing's report. Pang Xiao was a little surprised when he heard it. He then sighed and said, Leader Liao is a real hero. Yes. Qin Yining nodded. Master Zhong had always been someone Qin Yining trusted. In the future, when he passed on information to the Qin-Tian alliance, he would have to trouble Master Zhong. Therefore, Qin Yining did not avoid him and said directly, in this case, we can rest assured and leave the investigation of Huichuan County to Leader Liao. Pang Xiao said with a smile, that's what I think too. Not only can we inquire about Huichuan County's news, but I also think that with Home Master Liao's identity, we can also get in touch with those two people. With Leader Liao around, we won't be in the dark. You're right. Qin Yining sighed and said, it's my fault for not paying attention to the names of Mrs. Liao's attendants. Otherwise, we would have one more clue to investigate. Pang Xiao smiled at Qin Yining to appease him. Don't be too hard on yourself. In that situation, you almost starved to death in the desert. You've done well to survive. What else do you want from yourself? Qin Yining shook his head and did not say anything to ruin Pang Xiao's mood. In fact, in her position, she could not be asked of like an ordinary woman. If she really only wanted to help her husband and teach her children like an ordinary woman, the grass on her grave will be 3 feet tall by now. Although Master Zhong only understood half of it, He also knew that something happened in Huichuan County, and it was related to the two people in the Qingtian alliance who secretly contacted Liao Zhibing. Master Zhong said, "Forgive me for saying too much. I have dealt with Mr. Liao many times. This person has a clear face and a righteous aura. Although he comes from a humble background, he is not a treacherous person. He is very serious when doing things. I personally think that this person can be trusted." Pang Xiao loved Qin Yining and naturally respected the people around Qin Yining. Not to mention, Master Zhong was an old man who followed Qin Yining in his early years. Master Zhong said so. "I think Leader Liao is trustworthy." Pang Xiao lowered her eyes and pondered for a moment. Then she smiled and said, "It seems that it saves me the effort of going out. Moreover, if I go to Huichuan County, not to mention the long journey, the target is too obvious. If I ask Mr. Liao to inquire, I'm afraid I can get some different results." "I think so too." Qin Yining said, "The ability of the people in the Qingtian alliance to sneak into the market to inquire about information is first class. Moreover, the other party has the intention to contact Mr. Liao. Mr. Liao only needs to pretend to comply, and you can get a lot of unexpected information." Pang Xiao smiled and said, "That's right. Master Zhong came at the right time, and the information is too useful. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have already gone out." Head shopkeeper Zhong hurriedly stood up and bowed, saying, "This is this old man's duty. Wang Fei once saved this old man's entire family. This old man does not dare delay this matter in the slightest." Pang Xiao thanked Great Manager Zhong again. Then he personally escorted him to the door. Great Manager Zhong's heart was filled with joy and gratitude as he received such a courteous reception. His face blushed with excitement. When Pang Xiao came back, Mu Jinghu asked, "Your whole family is leaving?" "Yes," Pang Xiao said bluntly. "I'm worried that it's dangerous for them to stay here. Even if they have nothing to do in a short time, it's inevitable that they will be restrained when they do things. Now that there's a safe place, it's better to let the whole family go to a safe place." Mu Jinghu frowned and pointed a finger at his temple. "What you said makes sense. I also want Shan Shan and brother Yin to go to a safe place. But she won't agree. She wants to take back the Chiu family and avenge her grandfather. I can understand her feelings." Qin Yining smiled bitterly. "When the news of my father's accident came back, I couldn't wait to burn Yangxin Palace Hall directly. That kind of feeling, you can only understand it after experiencing it. It's that kind of feeling that I would rather fight with my own body and bones to vent my anger. Otherwise, I will live in self-blame and regret for the rest of my life." Pang Xiao patted Qin Yining's shoulder with heartache. He had asked Ji Yun and Bing Tang behind her back. That was an extremely difficult time, but he was far away in the south and could not help her at all. She could only rely on herself for everything. Mu Jinghu said, "Of course I know how she feels. Brother Yin is still so young now. Even if I say that brother Yin should go to a safe place with your family, I'm afraid Shan Shan won't agree." Qin Yining sighed and shook his head. Sometimes when things are really forced to that extent, even if a mother can't bear to, she has to. But the situation is not so critical now, and Fei Shan is not the main target. You just need to be vigilant. There's no need to take action now. "You're right." Mu Jinghu thought for a while and said, "Your family is all left. What do you plan to do in the future? Continue to stay in the south?" Pang Xiao heard and looked at Qin Yining. "Sister Yi, I haven't told you that your majesty has ordered me to return to the capital, right?" Qin Yining's smile froze on his face, and he slowly shook his head. Pang Xiao told him about Li Qitian's oral instructions and the imperial edict during their absence. "Your majesty must be very angry." Qin Yining's heart was cold, but he smiled freely and joked. "When you were looking for me, you went against 33 imperial edicts. Now, with these 8 imperial edicts, you can be considered the first person in this dynasty." Pang Xiao was originally worried that Qin Yining would be scared or worried, but seeing her like this, he couldn't help but feel proud. He laughed and said, "I can be considered the first person in history to have gone against 41 imperial edicts. If I say it out loud, it would be a crime against the whole world. Any one of my disobedience would be enough to chop my head off. When I return to the capital this time, I'm afraid that I'll be impeached the moment I see him." Qin Yining recalled the 10 major crimes that she and Pang Xiao had been impeached for when they returned to the capital. "Now that you've gained a foothold in the south, this is something that His Majesty did not expect and is most unwilling to see. When we return to the capital, we must make careful preparations." Qin Yining looked at Pang Xiao inquiringly. "Invite Sir Xie and Sir Su to come over another day. We could discuss together and come up with a plan. It's best to list out the problems that we may encounter when we return to the capital and then think of countermeasures to ensure our safety." "You're right. I plan to invite father-in-law first. Although father-in-law already has the intention to retire, his reputation as the wise Pan and is not just for show." The two of them discussed for a while, and it was already noon. Mu Jinghu invited Pang Xiao and Qin Yining to have a meal together. After the meal, they began the ritual of washing the third day. There was an incense table in the front hall, and 13 statues of the goddess of eyesight, goddess of pox, goddess of childbirth, blue cloud progenitor, and others were enshrined. The incense burner was filled with millet. The midwife lit 3 incense sticks and prayed 3 times while chanting. Chapter 882. Mu Jinghu and Xiu Feishan, husband and wife, did not have any relatives or friends. Only Pang Xiao, his wife, and their 2 children came. Xiu Feishan simply called all the respectable maids in the house to come and add to the pot together. When someone added longan, the midwife said, "Little Gongzi is the reincarnation of Wen Chu Xing." When someone added lotus seeds, the midwife immediately said, "He gave birth to a son." Qin Yining didn't care. The gold and silver added to the pot were all given to the midwife. The silver and golden melon seeds were all added to the pot. The midwife's eyes were shining, and even her voice was a lot louder when she said auspicious words. After adding the pot, the midwife quickly bathed Brother Yan. The baby's tender and white skin was touched by the midwife's rough hand, and he immediately cried. The midwife even laughed loudly. "Sound the pot. Sound the pot. Good luck. Ji Xiang Rui." After a set of procedures, Brother Yan's face was red from crying. When the midwife and the old mama took out the sacrificial paper money and burned it and cleaned up the yellow and white things, Xiu Feishan hurriedly urged Mu Jinghu to carry the baby to her. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao took Brother Zhao and Brother Han and left. On the way back, the two discussed for a while. When they reached home, Qin Yining wrote a letter to Liao Zhibing and asked him to inquire about the news in Huichuan County. Pang Xiao ordered someone to give the letter to Master Zhong, and then he arranged for someone to bring Xie Yu and Su Weiji to the residence. In the evening, the study in the outer courtyard was brightly lit. Xie Yu and Su Weiji were already sitting in the hall and waiting. When they heard the sound of footsteps coming from outside the door, the two quickly stood up. The curtain was lifted, and Pang Xiao led Qin Huayuan in first. Xie Yu and Su Weiji respectfully swept the floor. "Greetings, Duke Qin." Qin Huayuan humbly returned the greeting. "Sirs, there's no need to be so courteous. I'm not an official of the cabinet, so I don't deserve to be addressed as such. You deserve it. You deserve it. Duke Qin has the world in his heart and is wise and resourceful. You are worthy of this title." Pang Xiao smiled and invited Qin Huayuan to take a seat. "Father-in-law, please take a seat." Qin Huayuan nodded with a smile, then turned around and invited everyone to take a seat. Qin Yining stood behind Qin Huayuan and Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao said, "Today I invited father-in-law and the two sirs here to discuss the matter of returning to the capital." Qin Huayuan sighed softly. Under the light, he looked at Pang Xiao with a pair of eyes that seemed to have seen through the world. "Have you decided?" Pang Xiao smiled and nodded. "Father-in-law, I'm sure you know the situation and thoughts of Sister E and I. We have no way to retreat. How could Qin Huayuan not understand the difficulties in this?" But in his heart, he still hoped that his children could stay away from danger. But reality and expectations often ran counter to each other. Forget it. I originally wanted you to avoid conflict, but now that things have come to this, there's really no other choice. Qin Huaiyuan looked at Pang Xiao. His voice was gentle, but there was a bit of sharpness between his usually wise eyebrows. Zhishi, since you've made a decision, I'm sure you've thought about the future. Since you don't plan to avoid it, then you have to face it head on. The most taboo in doing things is to waver. Since you can't bear it, you can't avoid it. What you have to do next is to completely remove the mountain above your head. Otherwise, you won't have a place to be buried. Xiaoyu and Su Weiji were still guessing what kind of precious advice Qin Huaiyuan would give them. But no matter what plan they had, they couldn't escape the shackles of the monarch status. They didn't expect him to say such shocking things. Everyone knew what the mountain above Pang Zhao's head was. Qin Huaiyuan was right. Once they chose to face the imperial power, what they had to do was probably more difficult than overturning the mountain. Pang Xiao tilted his head and smiled. Father-in-law, I understand what you're saying. Qin Huaiyuan smiled and said, You don't have to feel too much pressure. I know you care about the safety of the people. Otherwise, over the years, you've had countless opportunities to point your sword at that person. You don't want to think about war, but you've been forced to create a lot of war. In this world, there are many things that can't be helped. Sometimes you and I feel that things can be planned and schemed, but who knows if your schemes are destined by the heavens? People's lives seem to be pushed forward by fate, just like how I sowed dissension against the Northern Ji kingdom in order to protect the Dayan. Just like how your father was feared by the imperial court and the Northern Ji emperor took advantage of the situation to eliminate dissidents. Your current situation is just like your father's situation in the past. Your military achievements are splendid, your reputation is out there, and your achievements can't even describe the pressure you're putting on the emperor. You're a smart child. Since you've chosen to return to the capital, you've already thought it through. Once you've made your decision, there's no chance to regret it. If you regret your decision now, Sister E and all your subordinates who trust you and are willing to follow you will be buried with you. Qin Huaiyuan's words were extremely serious. Although they were a bit long-winded, they were words from the bottom of his heart. Pang Xiao could understand Qin Huaiyuan's thoughts. He also understood the meaning behind Qin Huaiyuan's seemingly unimportant words. Father-in-law, don't worry. I know what I want and what I should do. In the end, I'm not a noble and selfless person. Just like Sister E once said to me, there's no right or wrong in this world. Everyone's standpoint is different. It's not wrong for him to hide his bow after he's done with the birds, but it's also not wrong for me to fight against oppression for the sake of everyone around me. It's just that our standpoints are different. No one is more noble than the other. Qin Huaiyuan, Xiaoyu, and Su Weiji all looked at Qin Yining when they heard this. Qin Yining smiled slightly. Father, don't worry. Although the situation is tense, it's not to the point of death. I'm worried that your majesty will find an excuse to impeach Wang Yi when we return to the capital this time. At that time, he'll be accused of disobeying the imperial edict and be punished for several crimes. I'm afraid it'll affect the foundation. Qin Huaiyuan nodded and smiled. Since you're able to bring it up, you must have some ideas. Let's hear them. Qin Huaiyuan's tone reminded Qin Yining of when she had yet to get married. She would often accompany her father in the study to chat. Every time, her father would patiently guide her, whether it was how to get along with others in the inner residence or how to criticize the current situation. She would always be able to get the best answers from her father. Qin Yining's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. Father, are you testing your daughter? Qin Huaiyuan clearly remembered those days as well. He couldn't help but smile even more warmly. Tell me about it. Let's discuss your ideas together. With Father and the two teachers here, I'll throw a brick to attract Jade. I'll tell you my ideas so that everyone can discuss them together. Qin Yining deliberated for a moment before saying, What I mean is that before we arrive in the capital, we need to do two things. The first is to look for bargaining chips. The second is to build momentum. I'll talk about building momentum first. The study was completely silent. Qin Yining's voice wasn't loud, but each word was like pearls falling onto a jade plate, clear and audible. As Su Weiji and Xiaoyu listened, Their bodies couldn't help but lean forward. Their eyes were full of contemplation and gradually flashed with light. Qin Huayuan stroked his beard with one hand, a slight smile on his face. Pang Xiao turned her head to look at Qin Yining's spirited appearance as he spoke with assurance. She couldn't hide her admiration and fondness for him. When Qin Yining finished explaining the plan in detail, Su Weiji clapped and said, "Wang Fei has thought it through thoroughly. You truly live up to the name of Duke Qin's bloodline. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call you a female Zhuge Liang." Xie Yu also said, "This plan is feasible. Even though it's somewhat risky, we'll have to face danger when we return this time. We're walking in the open, and your majesty has to protect his reputation. Naturally, it won't be as troublesome as traveling outside." Qin Huayuan nodded. "This old man also has a few ideas. You must pay attention to them when you reach the capital." Qin Huayuan slowly explained all the possible accidents he thought of, as well as the solutions to those situations. Xie Yu and Su Weiji listened, occasionally asking questions or adding additional information. After the discussion, although the future was uncertain, they already had a plan in their hearts. At least, they now had a general direction and weren't completely in the dark. After discussing the matter, Pang Xiao respectfully inquired about the date Qin Huayuan would depart. Qin Huayuan sighed. "Naturally, the earlier the better. It should be in the next few days. Even though we can communicate in the future, the road to the foot of the mountain is too high. It's too far for us to reach. In the future, you'll have to rely on yourselves." Standing up, Qin Huayuan cupped his hands in salute to Xie Yu and Su Weiji. "In the future, I'll have to rely on the two of you. This old man will leave it to the two of you." Xie Yu and Su Weiji hurriedly dodged and respectfully returned the salute. "Elder Qin, please don't be like this. The two of us are Wang Ye's aides. It's our duty to give advice to Wang Yi. Moreover, Wang Yi has always treated the two of us with sincerity and trust. To be able to follow Wang Ye's lead is the fortune of our lives. How can we accept Elder Qin's salute? This old man is acting as a father. The two of you are both my elders. Naturally, I can accept your salute." Qin Huayuan bowed again. The two sides returned the salute to each other. The scene was somewhat amusing, but more than that, they were emotionally moved. At this moment, Qin Yining truly realized that perhaps after this farewell, she and Qin Huayuan would never be able to meet again. Not only Qin Huayuan, but also her mother, her family, and her children. If they failed this time, she and Pang Xiao would be buried in the mountains and rivers, and her family would have to live in that oasis in the desert. "Father." Qin Yining went around the front. Lifting her skirt, she knelt down on both knees and kowtowed. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining also knelt down side by side and saluted. "Father, your daughter is unfilial. I can't make you worry less. I can't make you happy, and I even brought you far away from home. It's hard for you to return home, and I have to make you shoulder the fate of the entire family. I even have to ask you to help me take care of my children." Qin Yining's tears streamed down. "Your daughter feels guilty. If something happens to me, I'm afraid I won't be able to repay you in this life. Father, please take care of yourself. Eat more, wear more clothes, and take care of yourself. You don't have to worry about anything." Qin Yining kowtowed heavily as she spoke. Pang Xiao also followed suit and kowtowed. Chapter 883. Qin Yining nodded with tears in her eyes, trying her best to suppress her grief. She had returned to her family Qin for 5 years and had weathered many storms. Although she had spent more time with her parents than with them, she still had hope for the future. She knew that no matter how much suffering she went through, she would eventually have a chance to return home. This time, however, the road ahead was bleak. Such a life and death separation was truly heart-wrenching. Her parents, relatives, and her child, who was less than 2 years old. These were the most important people to her, but she might have to withdraw from their lives. It was rare for Qin Yining to be so fragile. In Pang Xiao's eyes, the way she restrained her tears was even more distressing than when she cried loudly. He really hoped that Qin Yining was an arrogant and domineering person. If she wasn't so sensible, why would she have to suffer so much? Father-in-law, this is all my fault. Pang Xiao kowtowed 3 times. Father-in-law, don't worry. This trip is not to throw away my life, but to make sure that the important people can live. I won't stake everything on a single throw. Even if there is a day when there is danger, as long as I am here, no one will be able to hurt Sister E. Even if it is a matter of life and death, I will use my life to protect her. I will never leave behind her. Father-in-law, please rest assured. Qin Huayuan nodded. He held back his tears and helped the 2 of them up. All right. Father understands your intentions. We are not parting forever. Although it is difficult now, things have not reached that stage. After this separation, we will definitely meet again in the future. You and I don't have to be so pessimistic. Yes, Qin Yining and Pang Xiao said in unison. Xie Yu and Su Weiji couldn't help but feel sympathy for them. They promised Qin Huayuan, Duke Qin, please rest assured. The 2 of us will do our best to assist Wang Yi. We will not slack off in the slightest. I believe in the 2 of you. From now on, I will have to trouble the 2 of you. You flatter me. This is what we should do. After the family came to an agreement, Pang Xiao arranged for someone to send Xie Yu and Su Weiji back home. Qin Yining followed Qin Huayuan back to the inner residence. There was no one else on the road, so Qin Yining took the opportunity to ask, Father, will Aunt Xiao still go with you this time? Qin Yining wanted to show concern for her father, but because she was a married daughter, it was not appropriate for her to directly ask her father about taking a concubine. She could only ask in a roundabout way. Qin Huayuan naturally understood what Qin Yining meant. He said bitterly, I wanted to ask her for her opinion, but she avoided me. She's been staying in the guest courtyard and refuses to come to the residence. I didn't want to bother her anymore. When Qin Yining heard Qin Huayuan take the initiative to talk about the details, he knew that Qin Huayuan was really confused. Even if Qin Huayuan was in a difficult situation, he wouldn't discuss it with the Sun clan, right? It was fine for brothers to talk about this, but with Qin Huayuan's personality, he definitely wouldn't embarrass himself in front of second uncle and third uncle. Otherwise, how would he be able to convince the family in the future? Therefore, when her father encountered such a troublesome matter, he didn't even have a place to talk. There is no doubt about Aunt Chao's sincerity towards you. This can be seen from how she has pursued you over the years. Back in Dian's capital, when Jixi soldiers besieged the city and the capital was suffering from a drought, with Aunt Chao's skills, she could have just left us behind. However, she was willing to follow by your side and take the lead for you. Although my mother and I are both official wives and we don't want our husbands to take a concubine, we were moved by Aunt Chao's sincerity and dedication. My mother told me that she was so in love with you that she was willing to risk her life to protect the people important to you. She had saved the lives of our family members several times. Even she was moved by her. Father, I think it's not a disgrace for you to accept such a woman who is willing to give her all for you. If you don't take the initiative, you'll be letting down her deep feelings. Qin Huayuan blushed and lowered his eyes. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have said these things to his daughter. However, he was truly confused. I understand what you're saying. I'm not a cold-hearted person who can be moved. I also admire her. However, when I brought up this matter with her, she refused. Earlier, when I took a concubine for the sake of having an heir, I hurt your mother's heart. Your mother was born in a prestigious family and suffered a lot with me in her life. Now that I have such an excellent daughter like you, I don't insist on having a son. Naturally, I won't take a concubine for the sake of having an heir and make your mother sad. However, I didn't do this for the sake of having an heir. Qin Yining listened quietly to Qin Huayuan's words. She knew that her father usually spoke clearly, but this time, he was a little confused. This was enough to prove that Xiao Yuqing's matter made her wise and thoughtful father confused. Since her father was willing to explain his thoughts to her, she didn't hold back. She took the opportunity to ask, I understand. You really appreciate Aunt Xiao and like her, so you want to marry her as a concubine, right? Qin Huayuan nodded and looked a little uncomfortable. Qin Yining asked the question hidden in her heart. But father, Aunt Chow has expressed her feelings for you in front of you before. She is a straightforward person and never hides her feelings. She was so active at that time. So why didn't you accept her? She entered the manor as a concubine granted by your majesty. However, you would rather accept the other 4 concubines than be close to her. You even put her on a shelf. If I were Aunt Chow, I would also have resentment in my heart. I wouldn't nod as soon as you opened your mouth. Wouldn't that make her come at your command and leave at your command? Qin Huaiyuan listened to Qin Yining's analysis and gradually stopped. They were walking to the small lake in the back garden. To the right was the Shuoren house where Qin Yining lived. To the left was the old madam's Xixiao garden, and to the inside was Xingning garden. The winter night was dark and windy. There were no stars and no moon. They could only rely on the lights of the Shuoren house to illuminate the path in front of them. The surface of the lake was pitch black, as if a lake of ink had gathered. Qin Huaiyuan pursed his lips and stood in place. He looked at the pitch-black lake and didn't know what to say for a moment. After a while, he said hoarsely, "So that's how it is." I think that's what she was thinking. However, I didn't mean to look down on her. Qin Yining nodded and sighed. If father has any thoughts, you can tell Aunt Chow directly. Aunt Chow isn't an unreasonable person. I know. At that time, she came under the imperial edict. We were colleagues, so naturally I could only keep a respectful distance. Later, I didn't want to delay her. She wanted to be my bodyguard and didn't want to be a concubine. Of course, I agreed. There was no reason for me to force her to stay by my side when she didn't want to. Later on, when Great Yin was annihilated, our family had to go through countless tribulations before we finally arrived at Great Zhou. I knew our future was bleak, and we could become the sacrifice of the struggle between the 3 sects at any time. So, how could I drag her into the mire? She didn't want to be my concubine. She only wanted to be my bodyguard. She could leave at any time. She could have been free. Could it be that because of my own selfishness, she would be buried with me? It's only now that I'm about to live in seclusion in Shiyu and don't want to be involved in the mortal world anymore. My life is stable, so I wanted to mention this to her. However, she didn't want to. Forget it, forget it. This kind of thing can't be forced. I also have no reason to force her to be a concubine. Moreover, your mother has been with me for my entire life. I have indeed wronged her a lot. Qin Huaiyuan seemed to be talking to himself. It also seemed like he was venting his emotions. He couldn't find anyone to talk to about these personal matters. He could only talk to his daughter, who was like a close friend to him. Qin Huaiyuan turned around somewhat embarrassedly. Sister Yu, but before he could finish speaking, he saw an unexpected person behind Qin Yining. Qin Yining saw that his father's expression was strange and hurriedly turned around. He saw Chao Yuqing, who was wearing a sapphire blue cloak with a gray mouse fur collar. She was standing about 20 feet behind him. Her fair skin was like high-quality porcelain in the night. However, he couldn't see her expression clearly. He didn't know how long she had been with them and how much she had heard of their conversation. Chao Yuqing silently looked at Qin Huaiyuan. Qin Huaiyuan stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His hands slowly clenched behind his back. The two of them looked at each other in silence. Qin Yining had mixed feelings at this moment. She knew that she was facing a pair of lovers. However, when she thought of her mother, she felt that this was a kind of betrayal. From Chao Yuqing's point of view, she had been a secret agent since young and had been raised to be a killing machine. When she was young, her heart was tied to a man. She gave her heart to him, waited for him, and was even prepared to give up her life for him. Now, she finally saw the light of day. She didn't want to snatch the position of the official wife. All she wanted was the status of a concubine. What did she do wrong? From her father's point of view, there was nothing wrong with a man taking in a concubine. With her father's status and talent, it was only right for him to take in as many women as he liked. No one could blame him for it. However, from a mother's point of view, her husband, who loved her wholeheartedly, had also shared his affections with other women. She could only nod with a smile and promise that he could have other women at the same time, and that she would share her husband with other women. If she did not nod, then she would be unvirtuous, jealous, and guilty of the 7 sins. In order to maintain this family, to maintain the relationship between husband and wife, and to fulfill the other woman's wish, she could only pretend to be magnanimous against her heart and nod in agreement. Neither of them was wrong. They each had their own difficulties and grievances. However, Qin Yining's heart ached even more for her mother. Qin Yining knew that her way of thinking couldn't be accepted by the current ways of the world. However, she was full of regret. This world had never been fair to women. Qin Yining curtsied and quietly retreated, leaving the two of them alone. She didn't immediately return to Snow Pear Courtyard. Instead, she went directly to Xingning Garden. The Sun Clan was taking Mother Jean and the maidservants in the house to check their luggage. When they saw Qin Yining, the Sun Clan smiled and said, "Sister Yi, you're here. Have you finished discussing business with your father?" Chapter 884. That's right. I asked your father and prepared a lot of things that Xie doesn't have. Otherwise, we won't be able to find it. Sister Yi, what kind of place is Xie? Qin Yining saw that the Sun Clan was so nervous and couldn't help but feel distressed. That place was discovered by people who lived in seclusion in the early years to avoid disaster. The oasis can be said to be boundless, and survival and reproduction are not a problem. It's just that the climate there is different from here. Mother, you have to prepare more medicinal herbs. When the time comes, the family will definitely not be able to acclimatize. Yes, your father told me. I prepared all these. The Sun Clan took out a small booklet and showed it to Qin Yining. I don't know what to prepare. This is your father's list. It saves me the trouble of thinking. Qin Yining carefully looked at the contents listed in the booklet. She couldn't help but sigh in admiration of Qin Huayuan's meticulousness and foresight. She returned the booklet to the Sun Clan. With father's arrangements, everything will naturally be foolproof. That's right. Your father is good about this. He never needs me to worry about anything. He always thinks of everything first. The Sun Clan stroked Qin Yining's messy hair and smiled. How long will it take for you and Wang Yi to do something outside? How long will it take to return? 1 month? 2 months? Qin Yining looked at her mother's gentle face and felt a wave of sadness in her heart. How could she tell the Sun Clan that they might not be able to return this time? She couldn't show any strange emotions, lest her mother worry. I'm not sure, but don't worry, Mother. After the matter is settled, it's easy for me and Wang Yi to go to Xie or for you to come back. Besides, although Xie is in the desert, I have people who know the way. It won't be too troublesome for them to bring back letters and all kinds of necessities. The Sun Clan member smiled and nodded. I know. Since your father wants the whole family to move, he must have made all the necessary preparations. It's just that our family rarely gets together. How long has it been since we last met, and we have to separate again? Perhaps she also realized that her words would make Qin Yining sad. Sunshur smiled and waved her hand, saying, "But don't worry, Brother Zhao and Brother Han are by our side. You don't have to worry about them at all. We will take good care of them. There are so many people in the family. If everyone takes care of them, Brother Zhao and Brother Han will enjoy endless blessings. Not to mention, your father will personally teach them. By the time you come back, these two brats will have improved a lot." I know, Mother. I'm relieved to leave the child in your care. Qin Yining hugged the Sun Clan's arm and leaned against the Sun Clan's shoulder. After Wang Yi and I are done with our work, we'll think of a way to visit you at Xie. All right, but I also have something to tell you. What is it? Qin Yining asked with a smile. It's about your mother-in-law. Although your mother-in-law was sent to the countryside to recuperate by Wang Yi, no matter what she said or did, she is still Wang Ye's biological mother. Wang Yi dotes on you now and stand by your side. Who knows if you will regret it in the future? Take advantage of this time. After you bring your mother-in-law back, you should apologize to her and give her a way out. After all, we're all family. If you don't make a big fuss, you'll lose face and make His Highness think you're mean. Qin Yining didn't expect the Sun Clan to persuade her. If it was 3 or 4 years ago, her mother would definitely support her to fight the Yao clan to the end. After all, the Sun Clan was the one who wanted to go back to her mother's family. After all these years, her mother had been through adversity. The Sun Clan had changed so much. Qin Yining believed that with her grandmother's guidance, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage in front of Chao Yuqing. Mother, I also have something to tell you. Go ahead. The Sun Clan looked at Qin Yining curiously. Qin Yining thought for a moment and said, if Chao marries into our family in the future, Mother, don't be too hard on yourself. You're father's wife. The most important thing is to hold on to father's heart. Being apart from her is secondary. Father welcomed Madame Chao into the family, so he must feel guilty towards you. You also gave birth to father's only child, and Han and Zhao have to appear in front of father every day. They have to call father maternal grandfather and call you maternal grandmother. No matter what he does, you are his legal wife. This point will not change. As long as you hold on to these things, your future days will be smooth sailing. If you're used to seeing some things, you can watch. If you're not used to seeing some things, you can let go of them. No one will be able to take away your position. The Sun Clan nodded slowly. I understand what you are saying. Your grandmother also persuaded me to do the same. I will go back and discuss with Chao Yuqing. If your father's heart is with her, the more he can't get her, the more worried he will be. It is better to let her marry into our family. Besides, she is not that annoying. The Sun Clan's words were awkward. In the end, she was still unwilling to accept it. Qin Yining couldn't persuade her anymore. He could only sigh helplessly. In reality, Qin Yining wasn't too worried about the Sun Clan. Even if she wasn't by his side, father wouldn't treat her unfairly. Besides, Qin Yining was the daughter raised by the Sun Clan. With Qin Yining around, the Sun Clan would have someone to talk to in the future. Besides, father couldn't do something like spoiling his concubine and neglecting his wife. Father still had this principle. As for safety, with father around, she didn't have to worry about the whole family. Qin Yining leaned on the Sun Clan's shoulder and murmured, Mother will be fine in the future. You will live in harmony with father. Old Madam is also old. Don't bicker with her. Turn a blind eye to everything. Everything will pass. Take good care of yourself and take care of your body. Live a long life and wait to hold a great-grandson in the future. This is the greatest blessing. The Sun Clan laughed when she heard this. You little girl, this is something that will happen decades later. Why are you reminding me now? You sound like a little old lady. Qin Yining also laughed and pretended to be angry. I'm just reminding you for nothing. If you don't want to listen, I won't say it. It was rare for their daughter to act coquettishly. The Sun Clan found it interesting and novel. They pulled Qin Yining aside and chatted for a long time. Qin Yining discovered that the Sun Clan was no longer so opposed to father taking in a concubine under grandmother's guidance. He quietly relaxed. If he didn't take it to heart, he might be less angry in the future. This world had always been strict with women. There was no other way to survive. Could he persuade father and mother to divorce just because he was angry? Qin Yining felt helpless and sighed. He chatted with the Sun Clan for a long time. It wasn't until Qin Huaiyuan returned to his room to rest that Qin Yining got up and left. Father, mother, please settle down. I also need to go back to rest. Qin Huaiyuan nodded slightly. He couldn't help saying so many things in front of his daughter and accidentally let Chao hear it. Although the misunderstanding was cleared up, he still couldn't get rid of it. Qin Yining was very considerate of Qin Huaiyuan and didn't ask much. It was a silent night. The next day, Pang Xiao went to the military camp early in the morning. Qin Yining stayed at home to accompany the children. After the afternoon, Qiu Lu and Lian Xiaozhou came back quickly. Wang Fei, Wang Yi sent people to pick up old Madame Yao. The carriage has arrived at the gate of the mansion. Old Madame asked me to come and tell you. Qin Yining nodded. I know. She stood up and told Qiu Lu and Lian Xiaocong to help take care of Brother Zhao and Brother Han. She took the white fox fur cloak and draped it over her shoulders. Then, she hugged the hand warmer and took Cloud Cinder with her as she walked forward. She knew that the Sun Clan told her this because they wanted her to give some face to the Yao clan. Although Qin Yining felt that the Yao clan's character was worrying, after all, they were Pang Zhao's biological mother. The Sun Clan's analysis was also reasonable. It was not good to fall out with Pang Xiao and put her in a dilemma. Moreover, If something happened to her and Pang Xiao, she wouldn't have the chance to see the Yao clan again. She just had disagreements with her mother-in-law. It wasn't a blood feud. There was no need to be so narrow-minded. It was better to be generous and leave a good memory for each other. Qin Yining quickly walked to the front yard. She saw two elderly servants wearing dark blue cotton coats helping the Yao clan down from the carriage. The Yao clan was wearing a rose-red jacket and a red fur coat. She took the hand warmer after getting down from the carriage. "Why are you so slow? Didn't you say that you would arrive this morning?" "Oh, madam, we're not that late. We took a detour on the way." The servant smiled. Yao clan said unhappily, "Why did you take a detour? Do you think my son doesn't care about me and neglects me? I'm back now. Be careful and tell my son to punish you for your crimes. You are the master and we are the servants. We don't dare." The two servants hurriedly smiled apologetically. Yao clan snorted. She looked up at the plaque hanging above Qin Manor and then looked at the large courtyard. She couldn't help but snort. Isn't this considered overstepping the boundaries? A commoner's manor is actually bigger than a prince's manor. The servants beside her didn't say anything. Qin Yining suppressed her displeasure and came forward to salute. "Greetings, old madam." Yao clan's face immediately darkened when she saw Qin Yining. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this the noble prince, Zhongshuan's wife?" Yao Shi walked in front of Qin Yining and looked askance at her disgusting face. Ever since she had shed all pretenses, she could not be bothered to pretend to be a loving mother and filial son. "What? You had the ability to make my son lock me up. If you have the ability, don't let my son take me back. Why are you pretending to be filial and humble now? Have you forgotten how you treated me back then?" Qin Yining sighed helplessly. It seemed that Yao clan had been angered to the point of stupidity. They dared to make such a ruckus in front of the manor. Weren't they afraid that outsiders would talk about it? Yao clan didn't care about their reputation, but Qin Yining couldn't ignore Pang Zhao's reputation. If people knew that Prince Zhongshuan's mother spoke like this, she wouldn't be able to raise her head and talk to others in court in the future. Qin Yining didn't answer Yao clan's question. She just came forward and saluted. "Old madam, you must be tired from the journey. The manor has already prepared." Chapter 885. Qin Yining was too close, and the Yao clan's actions were too sudden. She wanted to react, but she only had time to take a step back. The hand warmer fell next to her feet with a bang. The brass lid with the Ru-E pattern was thrown open. The burning charcoal in the hand warmer fell to the ground. Some of the charcoal splashed onto Qin Yining's skirt and cloak. When it came into contact with the wind, it immediately ignited. "Aya Wang Fei," Jian exclaimed. She hurriedly took off Qin Yining's cloak and threw it far away. She didn't care about burning her hands and went to extinguish the sparks on Qin Yining's skirt. Two blisters instantly appeared on her slender white fingers, but fortunately, she didn't burn Qin Yining's skirt. Ji Yun glared angrily at the Yao clan. This was Wang Ye's birth mother. If it was someone else who dared to harm Wang Fei, she would have taken him down long ago. "Wang Fei, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Qin Yining shook her head with a heavy expression. There weren't many servants in the family Qin now. Those who stayed were the ones she would bring to Shiyu in the future. They were all extremely loyal. In front of her own door, seeing the family Qin's eldest aunt being treated like this, 3 or 4 manservants in the front yard gathered around and glared at the Yao clan. As long as the Yao clan made another move, they wouldn't care about anything else. There were even more quick-witted ones who ran inside to report to Madame Sunday. The cloak that Qin Yining had thrown on the ground was already burning. The smell of burning filled her nose. The doorman quickly brought a basin of water to extinguish the fire. It was a pity that the high-quality material was wasted. Looking at the mess on the ground, Qin Yining calmly said, "It seems that old foreign's hand slipped." The Yao clan didn't necessarily want to burn her death, but she did want to hit her with a hand warmer. Qin Yining held back his anger. He didn't want to forgive the Yao clan so easily, but it didn't look good arguing with his mother-in-law in front of the door. In the eyes of the common people, when the younger generation quarreled with the elder, as long as the elder cried and pretended to be pitiful, Most people would say that the younger generation was unfilial. The common people sympathized with the weak. The previous emperor ruled the country with filial piety, so no one considered that some of the older bad people were not good people when they were young. She was the daughter of the family Qin. No matter what, she couldn't allow others to point fingers at her and say that the family Qin didn't teach her well. Especially now that her father was about to take the family away from home, it wasn't good to create more problems. Seeing that Qin Yining didn't flare up but found a reasonable excuse for her, Yao Clan immediately laughed. With arms akimbo, she approached Qin Yining and asked proudly, "What? Are you afraid?" She was sent to the village by Pang Xiao. Although there was no lack of food and drink for her, she couldn't even walk half a step out of the village. That place was very remote, and there wasn't even a market for her to visit. She had never been wronged like this over the years. In the past, her son wouldn't treat her like this. Pang Xiao was a good son who was filial and generous. But since this vixen married into the family, there was no peace in the family. "Let me tell you, you're lucky that I didn't burn your vixen face today." Yao Clan sneered. "Now that my son is willing to take me back, you should know who is more important in his heart, right? Your family Qin's daughter is not good at embroidery and treats her mother-in-law harshly. You even committed the crime of jealousy in public. My son is such a hero, but he was charmed by a vixen like you and forgot his roots. Today, my son took me back to your house. Just in time. I was going to ask your elders for an explanation. Your father is gone, but your mother is still alive. Let's have a good talk about how she, as a mother, raised her daughter. Let your mother come out." "Old madam, we're in front of the gate. It's not good for Wang Ye's reputation to make a fuss. Besides, did old madam's hand slip and drop the hand warmer? If this matter spreads, people will only listen but not speak. If things go wrong, they might spread a rumor that you wanted to burn me to death." "Bullshit. You still want to threaten me? Speaking of which, you were the one who stood in the wind and splashed the charcoal. I wasn't the one who lit the fire for you with firewood. A vixen like you doesn't need this old lady to dirty her hands." While they were making a ruckus, there were already many people standing in front of the gate. Qin Yining saw that this was outrageous and ordered in a deep voice, "Enter the residence," and closed the door. He then turned around and entered the gate. The two servants outside the gate also felt that something was wrong and immediately supported the Yao clan on either side and forcefully brought them in. The gatekeeper immediately took the charcoal, the hand warmer, and the wet cloak in front of the gate and closed the gate. At this time, an angry roar suddenly came from the inner residence. "Who dares to touch my daughter? Let her try." Immediately after, the Sun clan brought Mother Jean and Chao Yuqing out. Seeing the Yao clan dressed in bright clothes, the Sun clan quickly stepped forward and blocked Qin Yining behind them. He angrily said, "What is the meaning of this, madam? Are you blocking my Qin Manor's gate and making things difficult for my daughter? Sister, he said something wrong and did something wrong. As her mother-in-law and elder, you can teach her or reprimand her. How can you randomly hit her? Look, her dress was burned to this extent. What if she accidentally burned someone? What would you say? Who hit her? She bumped into me herself." The Yao clan would never admit it and sneered. "Is your family's lack of rules something that has been passed down in your family? Seeing madam like this, I'm not surprised at your daughter's actions. The Sun clan was so angry that they almost wanted to scratch someone. "First, madam, please calm down." Chao Yuqing was afraid that it would be difficult to do Qin Yining if the in-laws quarreled, so she quickly supported the Sun clan. When the Yao clan saw that the Sun clan didn't speak, they thought of the suffering they had suffered recently. Before they could think it through, they couldn't help but blurt out their thoughts. What kind of family is this? No wonder they raised such a shrew. It turns out that a crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. How dare you? The Sun clan was furious and pointed at the Yao clan with trembling fingers. Chao Yuqing was afraid that the Sun clan would suffer losses, so she coldly reprimanded, "If madam is dissatisfied with her daughter-in-law, no matter how much she teaches her daughter-in-law, it's not wrong. But as servants, even if we have a leisurely life, we have never seen a mother-in-law who blocked the door of her mother-in-law's house and made a scene. She even scolded the other party's parents. If a crooked stick will have a crooked shadow, then you intended to burn my family's Miss C and even wanted to kill her by arson. Do you think you're a crooked shadow? The Yao clan didn't have the strength to fight back and screamed, You! Who are you? It's your turn to speak. Chao Yuqing said, It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you're right. That's right. You're also a mother. Even if you gave birth to a son, other people's daughters didn't jump out of the crack of a rock. They were also raised by their parents. You're so mean. Aren't you afraid of retribution? The Sun clan's voice trembled with anger. The Yao clan put her hands on her hips. The Qin clan is jealous. They openly said that they don't allow my son to take a concubine. That's a crime. It's already my mercy that I didn't divorce such a prodigal and jealous woman on the spot. Besides, she was kidnapped by the Tatars. Who knows what happened to her when she was outside? You want my son to be a tortoise? Bah, in your dreams. My son is an honest man. Don't bully my family because there's no one with a clear mind. You're the one who's unchaste. You slandered my daughter. I'll kill you. The Sun clan's eyes were red with anger. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, wanting to scratch the Yao clan's face. How could the Qin Yining let her mother and mother-in-law really fight? If they really fought, the nature of the matter would change. Mother, please calm down. Calm down? Calm down? The Sun clan's mother was stopped by her daughter and couldn't get rid of the Qin Yining's hand. She was so angry that tears fell down. You wicked girl. You're usually like a bully, but when you're at your husband's house, you're bullied by that old woman. No, we don't want to live with the Pang Zhishi anymore. Come back, and I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. We don't want to go to their house to be bullied. Mother, before the Qin Yining finished speaking, the Yao clan shouted again. You want to return to the Qin family? Don't even think about getting a divorce letter. Wait for the divorce letter. The Yao clan's shrewish behavior was really unheard of in the Qin's mansion. The Sun clan's mother was trembling with anger. She wanted to hit them, but couldn't because she was held back. She turned around and ordered Chao Yuqing. Yuqing, go, and ask people to invite Old Master and Old Madam to the mansion. I can't reason with this shrew. There should be someone in charge. Then go to the barracks and ask Wang Yi to come back. Whether Wang Yi wants a divorce or a divorce letter, our family can't let our daughter suffer losses. No matter what, we have to ask for an explanation. Yes, madam. Chao Yuqing turned around and ordered people to do the job. Seeing this, the Yao clan's mother was so angry that her eyes turned red. Your family is a vixen with bad intentions. It's good that you asked my son to come. Let him see how your family Qin bullies me, because I'm alone. Ouch! How can I live like this? I can't live like this. The Yao clan cursed and scolded. Then, she sat on the ground and cried. The Yao clan's unreasonable behavior shocked the family Qin's people. The Sun clan's mother was a daughter of a noble family. She had never seen such unreasonable people looking for trouble. She was so angry that she almost fainted and breathed heavily. Qin Yining quickly helped the Sun clan's mother to sit down. Then, he ordered Ji-yun, Why aren't you helping old madam up? Why is she sitting on the ground? Ji-yun obeyed and went to help her up. However, the Yao clan's mother continued to roll on the ground. Her hair was messed up and she refused to get up. Qin Yining had a splitting headache. Originally, the family was preparing to migrate. They needed to keep a low profile and live in harmony with each other. However, the Yao clan just had to cause trouble at this time. She couldn't blame the Sun clan for doting on her and arguing with the Yao clan. Based on her understanding of her mother, the fact that the Sun clan didn't really order people to press the Yao clan to the ground and beat them up was already a huge improvement. Now that the situation in the imperial court was so tense, the family Qin and the Pang clan had to be united in order to survive. Once discord arose between them, they couldn't guarantee each other's safety even if they went to sea. Today, the Yao clan didn't deliberately want to burn her to death. Even if they did, she could only suppress the matter. She couldn't let the two families have a falling out at this time. However, Qin Yining felt wrong. She really didn't understand what the Yao clan was thinking. Intestines. Chapter 886. At this time, Xian Yun and Bing Tang heard the news and rushed over from Snow Pear Courtyard with Qin Yining's cloak. The Sun Clan took the cloak and put it on Qin Yining. Like a mother hen protecting her chick, she opened her arms to block them and looked coldly at the Yao clan who sat on the ground and made a scene. Qin Yining sighed and comforted the Sun Clan. Mother, don't be angry. I'm fine. Fine? Look at your dress. Then look at Ji Yun's hand. If she didn't protect you loyally, what would you do if she burned you? I was blind in the past to think that you had a good marriage. The Sun Clan cried. You were raised by me. No matter how poor your family is, there's no reason for you to go to other people's family and suffer. Just as well, you can take this opportunity to leave them with me. Then, everyone will be clean. I won't have to worry about your safety all day. Qin Yining knew that her mother was angry, so she comforted the Sun Clan in a low voice. Logically speaking, now was not the time for internal strife. After finally calming down the Sun Clan, Qin Yining turned around and helped the Yao clan up. Old madam, if you have something to say, please talk it out. The floor is cold. How could the Yao clan listen? She shook off Qin Yining's hand and cried while slapping her thigh. Oh my God, my son is unlucky to have married such a wastrel of misfortune. She's stirring up trouble in my family and making my son estranged from his own mother. If my son doesn't divorce this wastrel of a daughter-in-law, I'll kill myself here. Qin Yining was speechless. If it weren't for the tense situation, she really wanted to wash her hands of this matter. While he was in a dilemma, Qin Huaiyuan rushed over after hearing the news. The Yao clan had been living in the countryside all this time. They had no idea that Qin Huaiyuan was still alive. As soon as they saw Qin Huaiyuan, they stopped crying. They were so scared that their souls had left their bodies. They opened their mouths and pointed at Qin Huaiyuan, gasping for breath. Their pupils shrank because of fear. You. Qin Huaiyuan walked over and looked at the overturned stove on the ground, the extinguished charcoal fire, and Qin Yining's burnt cloak and skirt. He had a vague guess. The servant leaned over to Qin Huaiyuan's ear and whispered a few words. The members of the Sun Clan also looked at Qin Huaiyuan with grievances as tears streamed down their faces. Qin Huaiyuan's face was calm. His eyes were as dark as the abyss. He said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" He turned around and asked the members of the Sun Clan, "You're a guest. How can you let your wife sit on the ground?" The members of the Sun Clan felt wronged. Just as she was about to refute, Qin Yining and Chao Yuqing gently pinched her left and right. The members of the Sun Clan looked around and finally hesitated and didn't say anything. Qin Huaiyuan suddenly smiled and looked down at the members of the Yao clan. "Mrs. Qin, please calm down. There must be some misunderstanding. We're all family. Why are you so angry? Did Sister Yi say or do something that made you angry? As her father, I'll definitely teach her well." The members of the Yao clan's eyes widened. Are you a human or a ghost? You must be joking. Of course I'm a human. The Yao clan covered her chest, and her eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Qin Yining didn't die? Didn't he die? Didn't they hold a funeral? Family Qin is so strange. The Yao clan lowered her head and looked at the shadow on the ground again. In the afternoon, even though the winter sun seemed to be covered with a layer of white fog, the shadow of Qin Huaiyuan was very clear. This was not a ghost. The Yao clan finally relaxed after realizing this. She jumped up and stared at Qin Huaiyuan with arms akimbo. It said that Mr. Qin is a very wise man. Your family, Qin, is not a small one. Why don't you teach your daughter well? Even the daughters of ordinary families know to be filial to their mother-in-law. What's more, she committed 7 crimes. I just said a few words, and she falsely accused me of setting fire to her. My Pang family can't have such a daughter-in-law. Qin Huaiyuan's eyes darkened, and he smiled slightly. Mrs. Qin, you flatter me. I'm not a wise man. Naturally, I'm not as knowledgeable as Mrs. Qin. I often tell Sister Yi's mother that it's rare to have a daughter like Mrs. Qin who comes from a big family. Our Qin's family is low in status. I've only been the prime minister for a few years. My wife is only an ordinary daughter from Ding General Manor. Naturally, she's not as good as Mrs. Qin in teaching her daughter. However, if you say that she committed 7 crimes. As her father, I'm afraid. She has lived with Wang Yi for so many years. They've been through thick and thin together. She's been diligent and respectful to her elders. She also gave birth to 2 sons for Wang Yi. I've never heard her say anything bad about her in-laws. Mrs. Qin, please tell me which of the 7 crimes she committed. In terms of family background, the Yao clan was just a woman from an ordinary rural family. The Sun clan was the daughter of a duke general manor, who didn't know how to teach their children. In terms of family background, the Pang family was an official family. The Pang family had been destroyed long ago. The Yao clan was just a restaurant in the marketplace. They were rich because of their son. How dare they pretend to be a noble lady when they just clean the mud on their trousers? In terms of the 7 crimes, the Yao clan treated them so harshly. Qin Yining didn't say anything. They were humble and patient enough. What else did they want? The people present were not fools. At this time, they all looked at the Yao clan with disdain. The Sun clan felt refreshed. She just realized that usually when she quarreled with Qin Huaiyuan didn't really quarrel with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to argue with him. Qin Huaiyuan spoke neither too fast nor too slow. The Yao clan couldn't keep up with his words. After blinking for a long time, the Yao clan member said angrily, "Your daughter is a traitor. She's jealous of our family. Since she married into our family hasn't had any peace. You still have the cheek to say that she's a good person? If she's so good, you can take her back and marry her to whoever you want. My family doesn't dare to take her." As soon as she finished speaking, an angry rebuke came from behind. "Yu Ping, what are you talking about?" Yao Qinggu and Madame Ma walked in quickly. Behind them, there were 2 servant women. They were carrying a few big bags. Obviously, they had already prepared the luggage. These were all prepared for the journey. Madame Ma strode in. Unable to restrain her anger, she raised her hand and slapped Yao Qinggu. "Evil creature, how dare you spout nonsense? Kneel down." The Yao clan member didn't expect that their mother would raise her hand and slap them indiscriminately. She immediately burst into tears and looked at Yao Qinggu for help. Yao Qinggu didn't side with her like before. He frowned and didn't say anything. Madame Ma hurriedly said, "In-law, please don't listen to her nonsense. It's my fault for not teaching my daughter well. I've taught her to be a thing that doesn't know etiquette. Lassie is very good. She has a good temper and good character. She also has a deep relationship with our Dai Fu. Please don't listen to her." Qin Huaiyuan smiled and bowed to Madame Ma. "Old madam, you praise me so much. I'm really ashamed. It must be because we didn't teach her well. That's why such a misunderstanding happened." "Don't say that," Madame Ma said solemnly. "In-law, you're the Prime Minister of Dian and a famous official of 2 dynasties. In-law, you're from a prestigious family. Duke Dinghu's mansion is full of loyal people. In-law, you're also warm-hearted, straightforward, and righteous. Sister Yi is a good child. Don't belittle yourself. It's my Dai Fu's good fortune to be able to marry such a virtuous wife like Sister Yi." Qin Huaiyuan waved his hand in shame and sighed. "In the end, I'm incompetent. In the early years, I offended a lot of people because of my different positions. That's why Sister Yi was left wandering outside. It wasn't easy to find her, but she got married after a few years of happiness. Sister Yi's teaching was indeed our negligence. However, I don't believe that Sister Yi committed the 7 crimes of lust and jealousy. Madam-in-law, you seem to be suspecting the bloodline of Brother Zhao and Brother Han?" When Madame Ma heard this, she remembered that the Yao clan and Yao Qinggu had drugged her with safflower when she was pregnant with Qin Yining. Then, she thought about the 2 cute and clever children she had now. She immediately became furious. She turned around and glared fiercely at Yao Qinggu. "You stupid girl who doesn't know how to behave." Madame Ma fiercely slapped the Yao clan shoulders twice. The Yao clan covered their shoulders and hid behind Yao Qinggu. Qin Yining saw that Madame Ma was so angry. She didn't know how much Madame Ma had worried about her because she didn't get along with the Yao clan. He was afraid that such a good old lady would be angered. So he hurriedly came forward and helped Madame Ma to the side. Grandmother, please calm down. Mother-in-law was just angry and said those things without thinking. Please don't take it seriously. Today's matter, bah. Who said that it was a misunderstanding? What I said was the truth. Don't flatter yourself. Yao Clan's rebuttal blurted out. You. Madame Ma was so angry that she wanted to rush forward. But this time, Yao Chingu was one step ahead of her. He angrily scolded, "Shut up. Do you still want to talk nonsense at this time?" Yao Chingu doted on his daughter very much and rarely got angry. When he opened his mouth, outsiders didn't feel anything, but Madame Ma and the Yao clan were stunned. Yao clan stared at his father in disbelief and said with grievance, "Father, didn't you say I told you to shut up?" Yao Chingu glared at him. In the end, Yao clan was intimidated by their father and didn't dare to speak again. Yao Chingu turned around and solemnly bowed to Qin Huayuan and said, "In-law, don't be angry. It's this old man's fault for not teaching his daughter well and breaking the rules. No matter what the cause of today's matter is, it's Sister Yi's fault for causing such a scene." Yao clan saw that their own father wasn't willing to help them, so they felt wronged and sobbed. Madame Ma looked at Yao Chingu suspiciously. Today, Yao Chingu's behavior was too different from usual. She couldn't help but wonder if there was something she didn't know. But in any case, Yao Chingu and Madame Ma's attitude made the Sun clan and Qin Huayuan feel a little better. Yao Chingu and Madame Ma were one generation older than Qin Huayuan. Naturally, Qin Huayuan couldn't let them bow to him. He hurriedly moved away and bowed back. "Old Master Yao, you don't have to be so polite." Yao Chingu saw that Qin Huayuan only said such a simple sentence, and his heart felt uneasy. Family Qin was obviously still angry. Chapter 887. Yao Chingu couldn't help but curse the Yao clan in his heart for being so troublesome. They didn't care about the situation at all. Wasn't this causing trouble for their own family? Not to mention anything else, they had offended the family Qin. That Qin guy didn't flare up in front of them, but he had been in the government for so many years. Did he have the temperament to suffer losses? What if the family Qin people found an excuse to leave the three of them to fend for themselves in the desert? There was no food or water in the desert. How could the three of them have a chance to survive? When the time came, the family Qin could just say to Pang Shao that it was an accident and cover up the matter. Their deaths would be in vain. When Yao Chingu thought of this, he could accept any loss at the moment. Moreover, he knew his daughter's stubborn temperament best. The family Qin's daughter was astute. She wouldn't cause trouble for no reason. It was most likely his daughter who found the excuse first. After scolding people for so long, they probably wouldn't suffer any losses. Yao Chingu smiled and cupped his hands. "Don't be angry. This is your magnanimity. I know my own daughter. Her temper is a bit impatient. Once her temper flares up, she doesn't choose her words carefully. In fact, she's not a bad person. Just as E had said earlier, there must be some kind of misunderstanding. We're all family. It's inevitable that tongues will clash with teeth. Please forgive her for being insensible." The Sun clan's daughter pursed her lips. Seeing that Qin Huayuan and Yao Chingu were about to be the peacemakers, she couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. Even if Chao Yuqing kept pinching her hand, hinting at her not to speak, she still snorted and said, "Even if there's a misunderstanding, it's fine if it's cleared up. However, your mother used a charcoal stove to hit people and even set our sister Yi's clothes on fire. She was lucky that the family reacted in time and put out the fire. If she didn't react in time and burned Sister Yi, the matter wouldn't be settled so easily." Qin Huayuan glanced back at the Sun clan. Out of consideration for the overall situation, Qin Huayuan's family Qin and Qin Huayuan had to stick together to survive. Once they had a falling out with Pang Zhao's family, Xie would no longer be a safe place for Qin Huayuan's family to hide. Therefore, Qin Huayuan had always been polite on the surface. How could he not know his daughter's grievances? But for the sake of the bigger picture, he could only suppress it for the time being. At the same time, according to his actions, the most clumsy way to deal with this kind of matter was to make a scene in person. However, what the Sun clan had said was exactly what he had been suppressing in his heart. He knew the Sun clan very well. The fact that she didn't go up to the Yao clan and start a fight was already the limit of her patience. She was, after all, his wife, and she was devoted to Sister E, so he couldn't be too harsh on her. Moreover, he also wanted to see how far the Yao clan could go without falling out with them. Yao Qinggu was a shrewd person. When he saw the Sun clan's words in Qin Huaiyuan silence, he understood the crux of the matter. He was thinking about how to answer when Madame Ma spoke first. I was wondering why Sister Yi's dress became like this. So it was you who did it. Madame Ma was so angry that she wanted to kick the Yao clan a few times. She's your own family, but you did this to her. What are you thinking? At this time, the Yao clan was in a situation where her father didn't love her and her mother didn't love her. Yao Qinggu and Madame Ma refused to speak up for her. She had been wrong for a long time, so she blamed all of this on Qin Yining. She wasn't 4 or 5 years old. She was already in her 40s or 50s, yet she was treated like this by her parents in front of so many outsiders. She was beaten and scolded as she wished. Her own son didn't want to be close to her, and even sent her to the countryside to suffer. The Yao clan roared angrily. That little whore mistreated me and refused to let my son take a concubine. I burned her to death. You can arrest me and bring me to the officials. My son is the current dynasty's Wang Yi. Let's see what you can do to me. You, unfilial daughter, look at what you're saying. Is this something a human should be saying? I might as well beat you to death today and be done with it. Grandmother, please calm down. The scene was fine, but it became noisy again. Qin Huaiyuan frowned. He really had nothing to say to Qin Yining's mother-in-law. What's going on? At this time, Pang Xiao quickly ran in from the side door. When he saw the mess in the courtyard, he frowned. He first looked at Qin Yining questioningly, but Qin Yining was busy pulling Madame Ma away. Pang Xiao didn't notice Qin Yining's strange behavior and was slightly relieved. He quickly went to support Madame Ma and comforted her. Grandmother, please calm down. Let's talk nicely. Talk nicely? Why don't you ask your troublesome mother what she wants to do? Madame Ma's face was pale with anger. She pointed at the Yao clan. Yao clan members were hiding behind Yao Qinggu. When they saw Pang Xiao come back, they screamed, "If you are my son, you should divorce this disorderly woman." What are you talking about? Why would I divorce my wife? When did I have the intention to divorce her? Pang Xiao was in a terrible fix. He quickly grabbed Qin Yining's hand and squeezed it. Then he bowed deeply to his sobbing mother-in-law and father-in-law. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, your son-in-law didn't mean that. There must be some misunderstanding. Please give me some time to solve it. Qin Huaiyuan originally wanted to keep the peace. It didn't matter if he was wronged on the surface. If he wanted to vent his anger for his daughter, he had thousands of ways. Every way was better than arguing in front of them. Therefore, Qin Huaiyuan very considerately nodded and said reasonably, "Go." He turned around and motioned to the Sun clan, Chao Yuqing, and the others. "Let's go." Sun clan was still unconvinced, but Qin Huaiyuan looked at her with gentle eyes. His expression was so firm that she couldn't refute. Moreover, Chao Yuqing and Qin Yining had been hinting at her not to disobey. Sun clan could only purse her lips and suppress her anger. She grabbed Qin Yining's hand and said, "Okay, since Wang Yi said that you want to solve it, then I hope you can solve it well. Sister E, come with me." Sun clan wouldn't leave their daughter here to compromise. Qin Yining turned around and looked at Pang Xiao. The two of them looked at each other. Pang Xiao's eyes were full of concern and gentleness. At this moment, Qin Yining's cloak was open from where she was standing. Pang Xiao saw several burn marks on her skirt, and then he saw a pile of hand stoves, charcoal fire, and a messy cloak in the distance. His eyebrows knitted into a knot. Pang Xiao watched Qin Yining's back disappear into the distance. Only then did he look back at his surroundings. The servants in the front yard were in awe of Pang Xiao. When they saw his knife-sharp gaze, the servants all bowed and hurriedly retreated. Pang Xiao ordered Huzi with a heavy expression. "Ask 2 people to take the luggage to the guest courtyard for now." "Got it." Huzi obeyed the order and went to do it. Pang Xiao turned around and said to Yao clan, whose makeup was ruined from crying, "Old madam, please, He held Ma Clan's hand and said softly, "Grandmother, don't be angry. It's not worth it to hurt your body. Grandson will take you to the guest courtyard first." Yao Chingu, who was ignored, was very unhappy. However, he couldn't show it in front of his wife. It would make him look like he was competing for favor with his wife. Yao Chingu followed behind Pang Xiao and Ma Clan with his hands behind his back. Yao Clan was left behind. She looked at her son's cold back and couldn't do anything. As a son, he wasn't close to his mother. If this got out, she would be too ashamed to face others. The servants of Qin Manor all looked at her strangely. It was as if they were looking at a dirty rat. Yao Clan snorted coldly. She had no choice but to follow. Pang Xiao personally took them to the guest courtyard. Huzi did things properly. Not only did he put the luggage in place, but he also arranged for a maid to serve them. As soon as they entered, the brazier in the room was already lit. A gust of hot air mixed with the elegant fragrance of fruit rushed to their faces. There was also freshly brewed tea in the teapot on the square table. Yao Chingu heaved a sigh of relief. He sat down at the square table and poured himself a cup of hot tea. Pang Xiao helped Ma Clan to sit on the soft couch by the window. He turned around and served her hot tea. "Grandmother, have a sip of hot tea to calm down." Ma Clan shook her head and pushed away the teacup he brought her in despair. Her voice was full of bitterness and sadness. That ignorant girl bullied E like that. In the past, when we were in the prince's mansion, she bullied us behind closed doors. I told her off several times. I stood up for Sister E every time, but in the end, we were the ones who wronged her. To put it bluntly, I was also selfish. I stood up for E because I couldn't stand your mother's way of doing things. Secondly, I also hoped that you would give me face. Look what happened now. Your mother, that wastrel, came to bully Sister E as soon as she returned. She even scolded Sister E for committing the crime of lust and jealousy in front of Sister Yi's in-laws. She even called her a whore and a pervert. Such ugly words. If it was a delicate person, I'm afraid they would have already killed themselves to prove their innocence. Fortunately, Sister Yi's parents were born in noble families. They were so well-mannered that they didn't fall out with us. But whose child isn't a treasure? Sister Yi's parents were really good to be insulted like that in front of others. If it were me, I would have killed her with a knife. As Madame Ma spoke, she began to sob. Her words were incoherent, but Pang Xiao was able to piece together the whole story. He turned around and glanced at the Yao clan. Yao Shi immediately went forward to hold Pang Xiao's hand. "Son, your maternal grandmother is old and muddle-headed. She is very easily swayed and can't control people. Just a few words of praise and her heart will soften. You didn't see the face of your wastrel daughter-in-law today. I'm her mother-in-law. Can't I reprimand her a little?" Pang Xiao withdrew his hand and took 2 steps back under the astonished gaze of the Yao clan. "Old madam, you must be tired from the journey. Rest early." He then said to Ma Clan, "Grandmother, don't be angry. I will handle this matter well. As for who is right and who is wrong, the people I left behind will naturally see everything. I will go and ask them. If we are in the wrong, I will definitely ask for father-in-law and mother-in-law's forgiveness. I will try my best not to alienate our families." Ma Clan nodded and patted Pang Xiao's shoulder sympathetically. Chapter 888. Pang Xiao listened to Yao Chingu's words, which only revolved around his own safety and did not have the slightest intention of analyzing the situation. He could not help but sigh and shake his head. He bowed to the 2 elders and was about to leave. Yao Clan was anxious and hurriedly pulled Pang Xiao's hand. "Hey, son, listen to what your mother has to say. Go and ask those people. It's hard to guarantee that they won't be biased and wholeheartedly speak for the family Qin girl. If you want to know what happened, I'll tell you." "No need." Pang Xiao shook his head and turned to leave. Yao Clan chased after him. He held the door frame and watched Pang Xiao walk away. He was immediately furious. He forgot his mother after getting a wife. He turned around and said to Yao Chingu, "In this world, there are only ruthless sons and no ruthless mothers. You see how Dai Fu treats me, but I can't get angry at him. Madame Ma lay down on the soft couch. She was so angry that her heart was in pain. She was too lazy to listen to Yao Clan's words. Originally, she thought that Yao Qinggu would return to his original self after getting married. He would criticize the family Qin and teach the Yao clan how to act one way in front of others and another behind their backs. Now, facing the father and son, she felt a sense of powerlessness that came from her bones. No matter how she taught her daughter, Yao Yuping would be able to learn something else from her father. How could she pull a heavy cart by herself? Who knew that this time, Yao Qinggu's reaction was beyond Madame Ma's expectations? Go to the side room and kneel down. Yao Qinggu stood up and angrily slammed the table. Without my permission, you are not allowed to come out. You are not allowed to eat. When Madame Ma heard this, her heart was relieved. She turned over and sat up. She looked at the father and son in surprise. She did not understand why Yao Qinggu's temper suddenly changed. Yao Clan turned pale with fright. He pulled Yao Qinggu's arm and shook it. "Father, what are you doing? There are no outsiders here. Go now." Yao Qinggu shook off Yao Clan's hand and walked to the door. He lifted the sapphire blue curtain and called two unfamiliar servants in the courtyard. "You two come here." The two servants suspiciously walked to the front and saluted. "Old Master Yao, well, you don't need to do anything else. Go see Madame Yao. Don't let her to kneel down as punishment. Without my permission, she is not allowed to get up, and she is not allowed to eat or drink." The two female servants were loyal servants of the Qin family. They had heard a bit of what had happened earlier and were secretly looking down on Yao Shi. Who would have thought that such a good thing would fall on their heads? Just as they were looking down on the shrew had delivered herself to their door. The two servants quickly salute and yows. Yao Qinggu let them into the house and waved his hand. "Take her away." "Yes." The two female servants held Yao Shi's arms on either side. Yao Clan screamed in disbelief. Father, how can you do this to your daughter? Didn't you do it for the outsiders? Now there are no outsiders. Why do you punish me?" "Father." Yao Qinggu's face darkened. It seemed that this daughter was really spoiled. She didn't use her brain and didn't choose her words carefully. She had been living in a dog's stomach all these years. How could she say such things in front of the family servants? "Take her away." The servants curled their lips and took Yao Clan out. They couldn't help but feel pity for fourth aunt. She was such a beautiful woman. She married a good husband. Why did she have such a troublesome mother-in-law? It was true that men were afraid of entering the wrong line of work, and women were afraid of marrying the wrong man. What kind of family the husband's family was really important. Yao Clan was pressed into a side room. The servants were smart. They chose a thick and soft cushion to cushion Yao Clan's knees. They also brought a brazier to keep her warm. Although Yao Qinggu said that she was not allowed to eat or drink, she could still drink hot water. For this kind of spoiled noble woman, only drinking water and not eating was enough torture. If they went overboard, it was inevitable that people would say that the family was too vicious. Yao Clan was pressed to kneel on the cushion. She struggled twice and tried to get up. Yao Qinggu's voice came from outside the door. "Kneel. If you don't listen to me, don't call me father anymore." Yao Clan's movements immediately stopped. She felt wronged and started to sob. Yao Qinggu saw from the gap of the curtain that Yao Clan didn't get up again. Only then did he go back to the room with satisfaction. Ma Shi had already calmed down. Seeing Yao Qinggu enter the door, she sneered. "In the early years, when I was disciplining my daughter, you just wouldn't let me. After I finished disciplining her in front of you, you said something behind my back. You made a good daughter into such a person. Don't you think it's a bit late to be disciplining her now?" Yao Qinggu was afraid of Ma Shi since he was young. Even now, when he talked back to Ma Shi, he didn't dare to look her in the eyes. He only muttered, "Disciplining your daughter is your woman's business. Your daughter's bad behavior is also your problem." "Yes, I don't know how to teach her. I'm not a good mother, but you're not a good father either. Look at how you've spoiled your daughter. Didn't you spoil her?" Ma Shi sneered. "You two can do whatever you want. Don't be too filthy. Be careful of God's punishment. Yao Chengu looked at his old wife's pale face. His lips moved, but he didn't say anything. At the same time, Pang Xiao had already arrived at the front hall. He called Jinghu Wei, who stayed in the house, to inquire about the situation. Jinghu Wei had always been the most loyal. He was also objective and cautious. He wouldn't deliberately mislead people. When Pang Xiao asked, they supplemented each other's answers. At that time, Wang Fei went to salute old Madame Yao. But old Madame Yao came back from the field and was angry. When she met Wang Fei, she said a few words. They quarreled for a while. Old Madame Yao hit Wang Fei with a hand stove. Wang Fei reacted quickly and stepped back to avoid it. But the charcoal in the hand stove fell out and set Wang Fei's dress on fire. It almost caused a big trouble. Fortunately, Ji Yun's hand was fast, so Wang Fei didn't get burned. But this subordinate saw that Ji Yun's hand seemed to be burned with several blisters. After the incident, old Master Qin and First Madam both came out. Old Madame Yao said that Wang Fei had committed 7 crimes. Second Madam wanted to divorce Wang Fei. Family Qin has always been a peacemaker. Wang Fei also said that it was a misunderstanding. Later, Old Master Yao came and apologized to Old Master Qin. The atmosphere had already eased, but Old Madame Yao made a fuss again. Old Madame was so angry that she wanted to hit her. Wang Yi came back. Pang Xiao's face was calm. He pursed his lips and nodded. So, Old Madame was unreasonable because she held a grudge and almost burned Sister Yi. Father-in-law and mother-in-law stood up for their daughter. Yes. Jinghu Wei nodded. Pang Xiao nodded and let them leave. He only felt that his face was burning. He didn't have the face to see Qin Yining anymore. Jinghu Wei was his subordinate. Even if his reply was objective, he still left him some face. He didn't go into too much detail about the Yao clan. But how could Pang Xiao not know what his mother was like? Qin Yining was sensible and generous. He wouldn't look for trouble. So, the cause of today's incident was all because of the Yao clan. Moreover, in the current situation, anyone with half a brain knew that they couldn't let the family Qin and the Yao clan become unhappy. These two families, no matter who left, couldn't live in peace in Xie. Even if they had the ability to survive, once they had disloyalty, they would suspect that the other party would betray them. It was also possible that they would really betray the other party. Pang Xiao wanted to stay with Qin Yining to face Li Qiqian. What he did was something that could cost him his life. If he made a wrong move, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. None of them wanted to have a fire in their own backyard at this critical juncture. So, whether it was Qin Yining or Qin Huaiyuan, they were smart people who understood the political situation. They would only suppress the matter and not stir up trouble. Even so, the matter was still blown out of proportion. It was enough to see how much his mother had gone overboard. Pang Xiao wanted to investigate, but he didn't want to hear from others how much the Yao clan had gone overboard. He would lose face. Pang Xiao sat down weakly. He put his elbow on the table and covered his forehead. He lowered his head and buried his face in his palms. After a long time, Pang Xiao gradually calmed down. He then got up and went to Snow Pear Courtyard. He felt very ashamed. He didn't have the face to see the family Qin. But even if he was ashamed, he had to say what he was thinking. He couldn't let people think that he was avoiding the problem. Today, Sister Yi had been humiliated in public. She must be very sad. If he shrunk his neck and ignored her, could he still be called a man? But Pang Xiao thought for a long time, but he couldn't think of a good way to solve the problem. It really made him mentally and physically exhausted. Wang Yi is back. When Pang Xiao entered Snow Pear Courtyard, Qiu Lu, who was walking towards the small kitchen, raised her voice to greet him. She bowed to Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao waved his hand. He stood in the courtyard and asked in a low voice, "Where is Wang Fei?" Wang Fei just came back. She's eating fruit with the 2 young masters. Pang Xiao nodded. He hesitated and then strode up the steps to enter the door. When he entered the room, the 2 children were like 2 happy little puppies. They bounced out of the trees. Father, hug. Yes. Pang Xiao's heart was about to melt. He hugged one, then the other. He hugged the two soft children in each arm. His mood was much better. Qin Yining came out of the room with an exquisite white porcelain bowl. The bowl was filled with Bing Tang's specially made fruit and vegetables. Come, whose turn is it now? Zhao Gu. Turned his head and buried his face in Pang Zhao's arms. Han Gu exclaimed, "It's Big Brother." Qin Yining walked over with a smile. Zhao Gu began to kick his little legs in Pang Zhao's arms and struggled to jump down. The child was struggling too hard. Pang Zhao was afraid he would strangle him and had to put him down. Zhao Gu simply turned around and ran away. He kept shouting in a childish voice, "Don't eat, don't eat." Qin Yining chased after him with a small bowl. "No," we agreed. "You and little brother will each have a bite." Zhao Gu can't go back on his word. "Mother, I'm not eating." Zhao Gu hid under the table. Chapter 889. Pang Zhao watched as Qin Yining mischievously chased after Brother Zhao and played hide-and-seek around the table. Her watery almond-shaped eyes flashed with a sly light. Then, she looked at Brother Zhao, who was so serious that he was about to cry. She liked him so much that her heart ached. Sister Yi was such a good person, but she was always wronged because of his incompetence. Qin Yining finally caught Brother Zhao. She hugged the child and rested for a long time before feeding him the last mouthful of vegetable and fruit puree. Brother Zhao opened his mouth and ate it. His little mouth was still pouting, and he looked unhappy. Pang Zhao had watched enough of the commotion and played with the two children for a while. Seeing that they were tired, he asked the wet nurse to take the children to rest. Only the husband and wife were left in the room. Pang Zhao pulled Qin Yining into his arms and kissed her cheek lovingly. "You've been wronged. It's nothing. It's just a misunderstanding." Qin Yining hugged Pang Zhao's waist and looked up at him. She tiptoed and pecked his chin. Her eyes curved as she said, "I know old Madam's temper. She just has a bad mouth. Moreover, today was a complete accident. She didn't set me on fire on purpose. Ji Yun's hand has been checked by Bing Tang. She'll recover after 2 days of medicine." Pang Zhao looked down at Qin Yining silently. After a long time, he hugged her tiredly and rubbed his cheek against her neck like a coquettish big cat. Pang Zhao's voice was muffled. "Sister Yi, don't say that. I know you've been wronged. I've just asked about it. I'm too incompetent and didn't do a good job in these matters. That's why you've always been wronged. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been kidnapped by Si Qin. You wouldn't have been slandered later. At the end of the day, you can't be blamed for these things. It's because of me that you ended up in this state." Qin Yining shook his head with a smile and patted Pang Zhao's arched back with his fair hand. "Don't let your imagination run wild. Why did you have to do such a bad job? You've already done very well. There are countless people in the world who envy me for being able to marry you. But not many people know how dangerous it was to marry me, and even fewer people know how much you suffered after marrying me." Pang Zhao shook her head. "You don't have to comfort me. I know it's my fault. Father-in-law and mother-in-law must be furious, right? Their anger is only temporary. We're family after all. My parents won't be so calculative." Pang Zhao pursed his lips and did not speak. After a long time, he said, "I don't even have the face to see my father-in-law. Don't think too much about it. Father-in-law and father-in-law are also fathers. Why would parents care about these things with their children? Moreover, father is not an unreasonable person. What does this matter have to do with you? How can it have nothing to do with me?" Pang Zhao sighed deeply and pulled Qin Yining to sit down by the bed. He grabbed her hand and played with it in his rough and slender palm. "Father-in-law agreed to marry you to me because he wanted me to treat you well. He wanted to give you a happy life. But what kind of life have you been living since you married me? Father-in-law doesn't need to say these things. I know in my heart. I was too selfish at that time. I shouldn't have dragged you into this." Qin Yining felt sad when she heard Pang Zhao's words, but more than that, she was moved by Pang Zhao's consideration and understanding of her. Qin Yining pretended to be angry and said, "What? Don't tell me you regret marrying me?" "Of course not." Pang Zhao smiled and scratched her nose. I haven't done many successful things in my life. The most successful thing is to have you as my wife. You are smarter than a counselor. Because of your advice, I don't know how many risks I avoided. Anyway, we got married. It's a win for me, but a loss for you. Well, did you eat honey just now? Chin Ening smiled and said, You don't have to say these things. Husband and wife are one. I can't help you fight a war, so I can only talk in vain. We're a family. There's nothing to gain or lose. I just hope that our family can be safe and sound. In the future, we can live together peacefully and happily. We don't have to live in fear anymore. That's enough. Pang Xiao nodded. She never asked for much, but he couldn't give her such simple happiness. Not to mention anything else. He could pacify the world, but he had no way of controlling Yao Shi's wild imagination and her mouth that never knew the depth of her thoughts. The Yao clan, Chin Ening, and family Chin had a feud. Even if everything was over in the future, the Yao clan was likely to cause trouble every few days. Then, how could Chin Ening live a simple and peaceful life? Just like today's incident. It was the Yao clan who caused trouble first, but in the end, his sister, he had to take a step back and let family Chin tolerate them. He couldn't strangle his biological mother to death. The more Pang Xiao thought about it, the more worried she became. She didn't eat much for dinner. After washing up, Chin Ening went to see the two children. After coaxing them to sleep, she went back to her room to change her clothes and got into bed. Pang Xiao also lay down with Chin Ening. He held her in his arms and gently patted her to coax her to sleep. His cherishing and patient look was just like how Chin Ening coaxed Brother Zhao and Brother Han. His eyes were full of tenderness. Chin Ening slowly fell asleep with his low and magnetic humming. In her sleep, she unconsciously snuggled into his strong and warm arms. She even stretched her slightly cold feet onto his legs. Pang Xiao hugged Chin Ening. Her soft and fragrant body scent filled his breath. The person in his arms was so dependent on him and considerate of him. But even an upright official couldn't resolve family disputes. He wasn't even afraid of bleeding on the battlefield, but when it came to the Yao clan, he was troubled. Today's incident seemed to have come to an end, but he still said in front of his father-in-law and mother-in-law that he would give them an explanation. What explanation was he going to give them? Could it be that he was going to find an excuse to let his mother stay in the guest courtyard and provide her with good food and drink while forgetting all the grievances that Chin Ening suffered in public? It was his mother who bullied him first. It was also his mother who spoke viciously and slandered Chin Ening's chastity. She even looked down on the entire family Chin. His own mother couldn't be beaten or scolded. She had just been brought out of the farmstead, and she had already caused such a ruckus. Pang Xiao really didn't know what to do. He could go and kowtow to his father-in-law and mother-in-law to apologize, but this mistake was ultimately committed by the Yao clan. Would his perfunctory attitude be effective? Pang Xiao stared blankly at the canopy. He couldn't help but sigh softly. In order to let Chin Ening sleep comfortably, he had maintained that position ever since Chin Ening found a comfortable position in his arms. However, no matter how comfortable the pillow was, Chin Ening had already closed his eyes. He still heard Pang Xiao's sigh. As soon as he heard Pang Xiao's sigh, Chin Ening immediately woke up. She rested her head on Pang Xiao's shoulder and didn't move at all. Chin Ening knew that Pang Xiao was worried. He also knew what Pang Xiao was worried about. However, similar things happened again and again today. Was Chin Ening really not angry or aggrieved at all? If he really didn't feel anything, then Chin Ening would be a wooden man. She was angry, aggrieved, ashamed, and resentful. She also had many ways to take revenge on the Yao clan. However, because she still had her reason, she could only endure these things. For the sake of the overall situation, she could only pretend that she didn't care. Chin Ening really wanted to see what Pang Xiao would do. She really wanted Pang Xiao to teach the Yao clan a lesson. Only then could her grievances be completely relieved. However, now she was lying in Pang Xiao's arms in the middle of the night. This man, who could cover her with a quilt even if the sky fell down, couldn't sleep. Chin Ening's heart ached. Things outside were already very chaotic. Pang Shao had to command the 100,000 soldiers of the South Pacifying Army, and so many people were eyeing him covetously. He was working so hard outside, and when he returned home, he couldn't have a comfortable and peaceful environment. He also had to worry about the discord in his family. Qin Yining didn't want Pang Shao to suffer this kind of grievance. Ji Shi, Qin Yining, who had just woken up, had a kind of indescribable hoarseness and softness in her voice. She was as delicate as a kitten. Pang Shao suddenly came back to his senses. He gently patted Qin Yining's back with his big hand and asked softly, "What's wrong? Are you thirsty?" Qin Yining shook his head and asked, "Why haven't you slept yet?" "No, I just woke up." "Nonsense." Qin Yining turned over and lay on Pang Zhao's body. He smiled and said, "You're coaxing me again. We are husband and wife. Do you think I don't know when you're asleep and when you're awake?" Pang Shao couldn't help laughing. He shook his head and said, "Well, I know my sister, Yi, is the best. Come and lie down. I'm sleepy too." Qin Yining couldn't help shaking his head and sighing, "Well, I know what you're thinking and why you can't sleep. Don't worry. Our family won't be separated. Not to mention my ability, my father will definitely come up with a suitable way for our two families to live safely in Xie. I understand. I've always known my father-in-law's ability. I also believe that he has this ability. So, you don't have to worry about my father holding any grudges. Because no matter what, his principles won't change." I know, Pang Shao said with a smile. Qin Yining said again, "Since you know this, then there's another thing you're worried about." Qin Yining smiled and lay on Pang Zhao's chest. His long raven hair spread over his back and Pang Zhao's chest and arms. "Don't worry. I'll go and apologize to the old madam tomorrow. Even if my father has the intention, the two families still need an opportunity to reconcile. I believe that if I apologize, the old madam won't pursue this matter anymore." Pang Zhao's heart softened when he heard this. It was as if his whole body had fallen onto a soft and warm cotton wool. It was indeed a perfect way for the younger generation to apologize to the elder. This way, the Yao clan would be able to pass on the surface and wouldn't continue to be entangled. The storm between them could also be resolved in the shortest time possible. If he was selfish, he could agree and let Qin Yining go. However, Pang Shao couldn't do such a thing. Qin Yining had suffered such a great grievance. In order to not make things difficult for him, he even took the initiative to make such a request. If he shamelessly agreed on the spot, then he would be bullying Qin Yining. Chapter 890. Pang Shao sat up and hugged Qin Yining in his arms. He said in a low voice, "What's there to apologize for? Apologize. This matter isn't your fault. You're not the one who should apologize. You're not allowed to go." His tone was fierce. However, Qin Yining was amused by his expression. "All right, I'm a junior. It's not shameful to apologize to an elder. This matter is settled." Qin Yining covered his mouth and yawned. He pushed Pang Shao to lie down. "Hurry up and sleep. Otherwise, you'll go out with 2 dark circles under your eyes tomorrow. Those who don't know will think that I'm punishing you by not allowing you to sleep." Pang Shao burst out laughing. The mountain that was pressing on his heart seemed to have been removed in an instant. He lay down, turned over, and hugged Qin Yining in his arms again. He kissed her forehead lovingly. "Be good. Go to sleep." Qin Yining closed her eyes and hugged Pang Zhao's waist. She grabbed his snow-white underwear and quickly fell asleep. She didn't know that after she fell asleep, Pang Shao still couldn't sleep. Early the next morning, Qin Yining dressed up and instructed Bing Tang to apply medicine for Ji Yun. After everything was done, he went to old madam's place to pay his respects. The entire family knew about yesterday's matter. However, everyone was well-mannered and didn't talk about it. Perhaps it was because Qin Huaiyuan was at home, so everyone in the family restrained themselves. Qin Yining bowed to old madam. He also asked Brother Han and Brother Zhao to bow to her. The whole family couldn't close their mouth from smiling because of the 2 children's charmingly naive appearance. Qin Huayuan took the opportunity to say with a smile, "Mother, our luggage is ready. I think it's the same for our in-laws' side. Why don't we prepare some food and wine today and have a reunion dinner together?" As soon as Qin Huayuan said this, everyone nodded in agreement. Although it was called a reunion dinner, it was actually a farewell dinner. No matter what, they were about to part ways. The whole family was somewhat reluctant to part with Qin Yining and Pang Xiao. After all, once they left, Pang Xiao and Qin Yining would be left to fight alone. They did not know when they would meet again. Qin Yining smiled and said, "Then I'll send someone to invite old Master Yao and the others." When Qin Huayuan saw that his daughter didn't seem to have any grudges, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly at Qin Yining's maturity and sensibility. Because only when one grew up would one realize that sometimes a family didn't necessarily have to fight for a winner. If one won alone, but destroyed the harmony of the family, it couldn't be considered a victory. Only when one achieved one's goal would it be considered a true victory. Taking a small step back could achieve greater things. Many people knew which one was more important, but there were very few who could truly control their emotions. Pang Xiao was very ashamed. Today, he lowered his head and didn't say anything. When Qin Huayuan saw this, he really didn't want to make things difficult for Pang Xiao. He also didn't want to spoil the relationship between the young couple. He smiled and said, "Today, you're not in a hurry to go to the military camp, right? In any case, you can go after the banquet." Pang Xiao was very happy that his father-in-law took the initiative to talk to him. He nodded and said, "Yes, Xiaoyu, father." His gratitude was very complicated. Qin Huayuan understood and was very happy. "What are you talking about? It's a small matter. Remember, no matter what, we're still a family." "Yes." Qin Huayuan's words moved Pang Xiao so much that his eyes were a little hot. He had a wife who understood the big picture and a family that was so sensible. If he didn't appreciate it, even the heavens wouldn't let him. When he went back, he had to make it clear to the Yao clan. Whether it was to persuade them emotionally, reason with them, or just scare them directly, he definitely couldn't let the Yao clan continue to cause trouble in the desert. Qin Yining asked Bingtang to personally go to the guest courtyard. Mrs. Ma knew that Bingtang was the most capable person by Qin Yining's side. When she heard that the in-laws were holding a banquet and even invited them to go together, she immediately let out a long sigh of relief. Okay, tell you that we'll go later." "Oh, then I'll take my leave." Bingtang bowed to Mrs. Ma and Yao Qinggu with a smile. Her almond-shaped eyes looked around and didn't see the Yao clan in the room. She didn't show any emotions on her face and left respectfully. Yao Qinggu was a little unhappy. This Qin clan was really putting on airs. Could it be that they were sure that they wouldn't fall out with him? Did she really think that she was a noble princess consort? She invited the elders to a banquet and actually arranged for a little girl to come. Mrs. Ma looked at Yao Qinggu's long face and sneered, but didn't say anything. She had lived with the Yao clan for most of her life. When she was young, she knew that Yao Qinggu was a little smart and had a good character. However, as time passed, Yao Qinggu became more and more scheming. Now, he even tricked his daughter into this state. Mrs. Ma sighed. It was precisely because she was too stupid and didn't have any ability that she led him to this state. Yao Qinggu didn't know what his old wife was thinking. He was calculating in his heart and finally came to the conclusion that the current situation was very good. In any case, the Qin clan didn't want to do anything to the three of them on the spot. There was still room for future plans. The old couple packed up, and when it was time, they prepared to go out. Mrs. Ma had been observing Yao Qinggu. Seeing that he didn't seem to want to bring the Yao clan with him, she couldn't help but ask playfully, "Why? You don't want to bring your precious daughter? She hasn't eaten or drunk anything since yesterday." Yao Qinggu said sternly, "If she made a mistake, she should be punished. She won't starve if she doesn't eat 1 or 2 meals. It's right to let her reflect on herself so that she won't make any big trouble in the future." Yao Qinggu's words really touched Mrs. Ma's heart. Mrs. Ma was a little suspicious and shook her head. If you had taught her this earlier, she wouldn't have become so crooked. Yao Chengu didn't answer Mrs. Ma's words and only pursed his lips. The two of them went to the reception hall in silence. Qin Yining had been waiting at the door for a long time. When he saw the two of them coming, he quickly went to greet them and respectfully bowed. Old master, grandmother, granddaughter-in-law, and my mother were preparing for the banquet, so I didn't personally come to greet the two of you. Please forgive me, old master and grandmother. Yao Chengu said with a smile. Aren't you being too formal by saying this? There are so many people in the Qin clan. It's not easy to arrange a banquet and think about everyone eating well. Besides, we're all family, so we don't care about etiquette. Qin Yining smiled with curved eyebrows and eyes. Yes, thank you for your understanding, Grandpa. Mrs. Ma went forward and pulled Qin Yining's hand to go to the reception hall. Qin Yining looked behind the two of them. Grandmother, where's my mother-in-law? Why didn't she come with the two of you? When Yao Chengu heard Qin Yining mention the Yao clan, he immediately became alert. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Qin Yining's expression, worried that Qin Yining was holding a grudge and wanted to take revenge. Could it be that today's banquet was a trap? Yao Chengu almost couldn't control himself and wanted to go back. Qin Yining saw that Yao Chengu's expression was strange, so he looked at Mrs. Ma inquiringly. Mrs. Ma said, Don't worry about her, lest she comes and bully you again. She's like a shit-stirring stick. Yao Chengu felt that Mrs. Ma's words didn't sound right, so he coughed heavily. Ever since Qin Yining went to the door to greet the guests, Pang Xiao had been standing in the corridor of the reception hall like a log, watching from afar. He pricked up his ears to listen, afraid that Qin Yining would be wronged again. The young couple's behavior amused Qin Huayuan and the Sun clan, who were only a window away. Qin Huayuan had already comforted the Sun clan last night. Cheng Pa had carefully analyzed that if the Yao clan made trouble again in the future, he would tell the Sun clan how to deal with them. Therefore, after a night, the depression in the Sun clan's heart had long disappeared. They even somewhat hoped that the Yao clan would make trouble again, so that they could find a chance to vent their anger for Sister Yi. They clearly saw that Pang Xiao was depressed today, now that their daughter took the initiative to talk to the old madam of the in-laws family, while their son-in-law stood in the corridor and watched for fear that their daughter would be wronged. The Sun clan and Qin Huayuan were in a better mood. They walked out of the reception hall and greeted them with a smile. Old Master Yao, old madam. Qin Huayuan saluted and said with a smile, Why don't you come in and sit? The wine and dishes are ready, and the banquet is about to begin. When Madame Ma saw the kind smiles on Qin Huayuan and Madame Sun's faces, it was as if nothing had happened. Madame Ma was moved and held Madame Sun's hand. Yao Chengu's reaction was exactly the opposite. The alarm in his heart was ringing. Bad. Qin Huayuan's attitude. Was he holding back something bad? Qin Yining turned around and said to Qin Huayuan, Father, I just said that my mother-in-law didn't come today. Pang Xiao also walked forward and looked at Mrs. Ma inquiringly. Qin Huayuan said with a smile, Mrs. Ma must still be angry with Sister Yi. No, don't say that. Yao Chengu hurriedly waved his hand. Qin Yining blushed and said, In fact, yesterday was really a misunderstanding. It was my ignorance that made old madam so angry. I've been waiting for them to arrive so that I can apologize. Mrs. Ma felt sorry for Qin Yining and hurriedly said, Good boy, I know your heart and I know you've been wronged. To tell you the truth, your troublesome mother-in-law is kneeling in the wing room as punishment. Qin Yining was surprised. How can she do that? Yao Chengu said righteously, Why can't she do that? She acted like that, throwing a tantrum without distinguishing between right and wrong, speaking without thinking and hurting people. She deserves to be punished to kneel. Qin Huan hurriedly said anxiously, That can't be done. It is my daughter who should apologize to Mrs. Ma. How could she be punished to kneel? What he said, Yao Chengu's pupils shrank. He secretly cursed this official for being so unforgiving. Qin Huayuan's words were clearly for the Yao clan, but in reality, he was blaming Yao Chengu for being a busybody. He didn't think clearly and only punished her to kneel. Wouldn't the Yao clan hate Qin Yining even more? Yao Chengu was also a quick-witted and eloquent person, but at this moment, he couldn't say a word to deal with it. Qin Huayuan thought for a while and said, How about this? Let's go and pick up Mrs. In-law as a family, and let Sister E apologize to Mrs. In-law. This reunion banquet should be a family reunion no matter what. Mrs. Ma felt guilty and felt that Cheen Ening had been wronged. Therefore, she held Cheen Ening's hand with one hand and the Sun Clan's hand with the other. Her face was full of guilt. Cheen Ening and the Sun Clan couldn't help but feel sorry for this kind-hearted and righteous old woman. They didn't want to make things difficult for her anymore. Yao Qinggu, on the other hand, secretly sighed in relief. As long as the family Qin was willing to give him a way out, it was fine. After one night, the Yao clan should have thought it through. If there was a way out, it would be easier for the family to talk and do things when they met in the future. Otherwise, if they quarreled, how would they get along when they went to see ya? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.